Hello, and welcome to the Kickoff event for Supernova, the first global internet computer hackathon. Today marks the start of Supernova, and also the anniversary of the internet computer's genesis and public launch, which catalyzed an explosion of developer activity and community growth within the internet computer ecosystem. Genesis marked a new beginning for a new generation of developers and entrepreneurs ready to help build out Web3. Thousands of developers are hard at work building on the internet computer. Everything from instant message and social media dApps hosted completely on-chain to decentralized exchanges and marketplaces with zero gas or minting fees. We're seeing NFTs that live entirely on the blockchain, secure enterprise software, play-to-earn games, and metaverse projects that are impossible elsewhere. Plus, devs are building never-before-seen infrastructure and tooling for the Web3 ecosystem. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for tuning in to this virtual event. To kick things off, we'll hear from Supernova partners from around the globe who have been working behind the scenes to make this hackathon possible. We'll be covering everything you need to know about the logistics of the Supernova hackathon, the tracks under which you can build and submit, as well as information about prizes and funding. We'll see interviews and presentations from leaders within Web3, early investors in the ICP ecosystem, and brief technical overviews from researchers at the Dfinity Foundation. Today's show will also include something new. In a series of founder spotlights, we'll hear directly from the pioneering developers and founders who are among the earliest adopters of the internet computer blockchain. I'm joined by Lomesh Duda, Dfinity's VP of Growth, who is overseeing Dfinity's $250 million developer grant program. Lomesh works with the earliest founding teams in the ICP ecosystem. Lomesh, give us an overview of the internet computer developer landscape.
Thank you, Anna. It has been incredible to see the internet computer ecosystem take shape in the last 12 months since our genesis. The IC community has attracted several of the top talented entrepreneurs and developers who have surprised us with their creativity and sheer determination to build some of the most cutting-edge projects in the blockchain and crypto world. Internet computer is the only blockchain that can scale without bounds and offers the ability to build end-to-end services directly on-chain. This is unlike anything else out there, where the front end or the application logic lives outside the blockchain and only the token movements happen on-chain. On the internet computer, you can build truly end-to-end decentralized applications that can be entirely owned and governed by the community. Today, we have with us a few of our core community developers that have been the pioneers in our ecosystem and have been actively building from the last few months. Rick Porter from Discover, who's building a decentralized social network completely on-chain, to Bob Bodily from Tonic Labs, one of the leading NFT marketplaces on IC, as well as Max Chamberlain from Infinity Swap, who is leveraging the reverse gas model of the IC to build the gasless decentralized exchange that will also bring native Bitcoin trading pairs with the direct integration of Bitcoin on IC.
Hello and welcome everyone to the first global Web3 Internet Computer Hackathon called Supernova. The focus of this event is extraordinarily exciting, and I'm going to run you through some aspects of the internet computer environment and its capabilities and what's possible to let you know just how exciting this is. So Web3 is the third phase of the internet. We started out with Web 1, and that sort of kicked off in the early 90s with people uploading content onto web servers, which would be downloaded into early web browsers, visually rendered and read. Then, as we neared the end of the century, we saw the first social media, and users began uploading content to servers on the internet so that other users could download it into their browsers and read it. So Web 2 really can be characterized by the phrase write. Web3 is all about ownership and can be characterized by the word own. In Web3, users gain control of assets and participation rights directly through holding digital tokens and can participate in the management and effectively hold a part ownership share in the online services that they participate in through something called decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs. So in this diagram here, we've got a blockchain hosting a bunch of smart contracts. And what we feel very strongly at Dfinity is that in Web3, blockchain is the platform and it is the cloud. And we're going to see online services running 100% from the blockchain. So looking at this diagram here, you can see there's kind of canister shaped things as smart contracts, which are units of blockchain code that are tamper-proof, unstoppable, and process tokens. And the colored lines show how those smart contracts are being combined together to create Web3 services. And here, the users are directly interacting on their phones or laptops with the smart contracts hosted by the blockchain over HTTP, which of course is very apt because this, after all, is Web3. The second important aspect of Web3 is that communities will own online services via decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs. So looking at the diagram now, we can see that the service is, the smart contracts making the service are circled with a yellow line, and the smart contracts making a DAO are circled with a green line. And the users are now interacting with both, and tokens have entered the game. So many of you may be asking, is this possible on blockchain? Is this really possible? And the answer, I'm very, very excited to tell you, is yes, it is possible today, thanks to moon math cryptography. And of course, I'm talking about the internet computer, which creates an environment in cyberspace where you can host these smart contracts. The internet computer is created from special node machines that are run by independent parties around the world. They're essentially publicly owned machines. And these are combined over the internet via something called Internet Computer Protocol, which is where the ICP token takes its name from. And Internet Computer Protocol creates the internet computer, which is a general purpose blockchain, a kind of world computer blockchain, which hosts canister smart contracts, which essentially, of course, are just hosted blockchain code. The good news is, that this thing's available on Earth already, and people are already building super exciting Web3 services. And that's what we hope that many of you joining this hackathon will have a go at doing. So one of the really amazing and important aspects of the internet computer is that it's amazingly efficient, but at the same time, it maintains all of those key properties that we expect of blockchain. So, it maintains security, liveness, autonomy, censorship resistance, decentralization, and programmability. Now, down the bottom of this slide, there are some references to material, and I guess some of the numbers I'm going to show you next. If you download the PDF version of this deck from my Twitter feed, you can click on those links. So in the following comparisons, we acknowledge that, blockchains have different designs, but we wanted to show you quite how different they could be. So the big block on the left is the relative cost of storing a gigabyte of data on the Ethereum blockchain. That's Ethereum version 1, which is still proof of work. And it costs about $100 million. It varies. I think today it's about 60, but it's been as high as $300 million for a gigabyte. On the right is the relative cost of storing a gigabyte of data on the Solana blockchain for a year when the price of one sol is $150. So the ratio is 1 to 190. So Solana, it's a very different kind of blockchain to Ethereum, but Solana has improved efficiency, or at least reduced the cost of storing data on the blockchain by 190 times. Now let's zoom into the Solana block and compare it to the Internet Computer. All right, so the Internet Computer block is being pointed to by that orange arrow. If you can see it, it is there. It's only about 3 pixels by 3 pixels, and you might need a sort of high-resolution screen to see it. While the cost of storing a gigabyte of data on Solana is about $500,000 per gigabyte per year, the cost of storing a gigabyte of data on the Internet Computer is about $5 a gigabyte a year. So we've got an improvement in efficiency, or a reduction in cost, of about 100,000 times. And this is very, very important because it enables us to do things that you just couldn't do before. Now, one way of thinking about this is what's the cost to store a simple phone photo on the blockchain for a year? So a phone photo is about 3 meg. It'll cost you approximately 1.6 cents on the Internet Computer. But on Solana, it'll cost you more than $1,500. Well, that price can go up and down as the price of Sol goes up and down. So clearly, it would probably be too expensive to store a photo collection on Solana. But it's not just media files, of course, that we need to store on the blockchain. If you want to create a social media service, say, on the blockchain, you're going to need to be able to combine structured user data to form custom news feeds for different users and things like that. So the cost of storage is very, very important indeed. Okay, so some of you might be wondering, why not just use the cloud? Today, most apps and services store and process 99% of their data on the corporate cloud. What problems can ICP solve? So, you can imagine saying, I can't keep more than a few tokens on my blockchain. My friend keeps telling me to build on Amazon Web Services, but I got a bad feeling about this. This is the kind of architecture that you'd use there. You would combine a database and a web server with some custom dApp code. Your web server might be Nginx, your database might be MySQL, and you might write your dApp code in Java, say. What's wrong with that? Well, let's have a look. So this is the overall architecture. This is the 99% on-cloud architecture for dApps and services. On the left, we've got the user's laptop. It could be a phone, obviously, which is where they receive the content that they interact with. In order to perform those interactions, they'll have to have installed a crypto wallet, something like MetaMask, that's typically downloaded from the Chrome Web Store or Chrome Play Store. And the content that's in the browser or the app will interact over HTTP with the web server running on the cloud. The content being returned by the web server, of course, will be credited by the dApp code that's pulling content from the database. And occasionally, the user will interact with the blockchain, for example, to mint an NFT or create a token or something like that. And in those cases where they need to interact, they'll use the wallet, and that will trigger the interaction. Now, you notice in this architecture, I've actually got a bunch of the blockchain local nodes, if you want to call them that, running on the cloud too. And that's because that's mainly what happens today. So for example, in the Ethereum ecosystem, there's this service called Infura that runs on Amazon Web Services. And Infura runs a lot of Ethereum local nodes, so developers don't have to. Developers just, build that component that's constructed from the web server, the dApp code and the database, and their dApp code just talks to the local node run by Infura. Or for example, if you're talking about Solana, you won't typically run your own node again, you'll just interact with somebody else's. Okay, so let's look at some of the things that can go wrong with this a very common architecture. Well, first of all, obviously, if you're using, say, Google Chrome Store or Play Store to host the wallet and deploy it into your browser or install it on your phone, there's the danger that Google can ban the wallet, and that would stop your users accessing your service. There's also the danger that Google can steal the tokens. Now, Google, of course, would be very, very unlikely to want to steal tokens, but it would be somebody, maybe somebody working at Google could act maliciously and modify the wallet code. And, not surprisingly, of course, this has already happened in the past. Google has indeed banned MetaMask, which the Ethereum, ecosystem depends on, for a whole week. But I believe that's not nearly as serious a consequence as could happen if they actually modified the code in order to steal people's tokens. Okay, so the 99% of the DApp or the centralized service is really running on the cloud. The data's in the database and the web server serving the content, and there's some DApp code there. The problem with that is, the cloud can ban the DApp, and we've seen that already. With Parler, it wasn't a DApp; it was a social media site. Amazon Web Services didn't like the sort of political leanings of the service, and they banned it. And hackers who get into the cloud account can steal tokens, and potentially, of course, if something goes wrong with that account, the cloud could even just delete the data. Now, with respect to hackers getting into cloud accounts and stealing the tokens, that's already happened. A few months ago, Badger DAO lost $130 million because the hackers got into their Cloudflare account and started inserting malicious content into the web pages that users loaded into their browsers when they're interacting with Badger DAO. And that malicious content inside the web page was interacting with the MetaMask wallet to steal people's tokens. So that's really, really something that you don't want to happen if you're building a Web3 service. Finally, of course, similar problems can also occur with the local nodes that are running on a service like Infura. The problem is that the DApp code is trusting the data and the interactions of the blockchain that it sees, with respect to these local nodes. And if they're malicious, of course, they could send back invalid data and do a sort of reverse SQL injection attack, and cause the same kind of problem that we just looked at with Badger DAO. The other problem, of course, is if there's a problem with the cloud and something like Infura goes down, well, that's going to widely impact your ecosystem. Builders of services can avoid this kind of problem by running their own local nodes, but that's not always the way people do things at the moment. So just a week or so ago, there was an outage of Infura, and that stopped MetaMask working, and that pretty much hosed people's access to the Ethereum ecosystem. So the final problem with this architecture is, a DAO cannot update a DApp that's really running on the cloud. And that means the community's not in control, the developers are legally responsible for the service, and control can't be decentralized. And the reason is that a DAO is built from smart contracts, and it runs on the blockchain, and it can't reach out of the blockchain environment into the cloud environment and configure and control and update that code. That requires a legal counterparty who has given Amazon Web Services, say, their credit card. And the challenge with this, of course, is, well, there are lots of challenges. I mean, the people running the service obviously could switch it off. So, the community is not really in control. I mean, the DAO can pass proposals and motions telling them what to do, but they're sort of relying on their goodwill. But for the developers, it's a really big problem too, because the regulators will look at a service like this and say, well, it's not decentralized. Hey, you developer, your credit card's in that Amazon Web Services account, and therefore, you're responsible, not the DAO, and you're not decentralized. The tokens are securities, and maybe you're a money transmitter. So in many cases, people wrestling with these problems have self-censored, and we saw that last year with Uniswap, when it took down about half of its tokens. It effectively self-censored. So fixing this was our mission, and now you can build the new Web3 internet. And you can do this using a new form of super advanced smart contract called canister smart contracts, which are software actors. And these are really, really interesting things. Each canister smart contract is a bundle of WebAssembly bytecode and persistent memory pages that bytecode alone can execute within. And this new kind of smart contract makes it possible to create dApps that can scale. It allows the blockchain to scale because, of course, it allows these smart contracts to run in parallel. And you can create these canister smart contracts using any programming language that compiles down to WebAssembly. Two popular languages people use at the moment are Motoko and Rust. Motoko is something, when you're trying to choose a language, obviously, I'm sure you'll have heard of Rust. Rust is a very, very mature systems language, very, very powerful language. Motoko is a new language, but, I would recommend you play around with it and consider using it. Motoko was designed to take maximum advantage of WebAssembly. And it was actually designed by one of the two creators of WebAssembly. So, as you imagine, it plays WebAssembly and Motoko play very well together. And it provides a native software actor programming framework. It allows you to code sequentially in direct style, even though the internet computer environment is asynchronous, in contrast to a normal blockchain environment, which is synchronous. It provides native support for this thing called orthogonal persistence, where you can just, define, variables, data types, collections, and so on, in memory, and just leave them there as a way of persisting your data. It has number types with unlimited precision for DeFi and other special ICP environment support. And one of the really great things about Motoko is that if you've already got Solidity or JavaScript or similar skills, you'll be able to learn Motoko super fast. So something else you should know about the internet computer is that it has this groundbreaking reverse gas model. And that means smart contracts now pay for their own computation. So in this model, developers get hold of ICP, for example, through a financial exchange, and they convert the ICP to something called cycles. Cycles are the computational fuel that power canister smart contracts. And canister smart contracts have to be charged up with cycles. It's a bit like a Tesla car. You charge a Tesla car up with electricity, and when it drives around, it consumes the electricity in the battery, and eventually you have to fill it up again. Canister smart contracts work the same way. You charge them up with cycles, and it burns its way through those cycles, performing computations and storing data and things like that. Now, the great advantage of reverse gas is it means that users don't have to have tokens in order to interact with services you created on the blockchain. Now, the internet computer follows what I call Satoshi philosophy, where you try and get rid of intermediaries, and reverse gas combines with something called internet identity in a very beautiful way that allows users to authenticate themselves in a way that preserves their anonymity by using features that are built into modern hardware. So modern hardware has secure places for cryptographic keys. And using a protocol called WebAuthn, signing can happen inside the hardware. And there's no way of ever getting the keys out of that hardware, so they can't be stolen. So when you interact with a service running on the internet computer, essentially your session key will be signed inside that secure hardware, and you can tell your device to do that using the fingerprint sensor on your laptop, say, or Face ID on your phone, or if you want to do it yourself, an HSM device like a Ledger Wallet or a YubiKey. And this, of course, gets rid of one of the main barriers to entry and obstacles and hurdles and the primary friction that users experience when they want to interact with a blockchain service. They don't need tokens anymore. They don't need to manage the keys. They need to worry about somebody hacking onto their computer and stealing the keys. They can just create an internet identity anchor and assign a bunch of devices to it. So for example, there's a chat service called OpenChat, and I can access that using my identity anchor from my laptop, from my phone, and other devices. So I just mentioned OpenChat. This is a sort of pioneering social fi service that's been built on the internet computer. It's a chat service. All of the chat messages are processed by smart contracts on the internet computer and stored on the internet computer, including images and video, albeit it deletes old media messages to keep the storage consumed by your account down. And this thing already has tens of thousands of users. Now, this is something you should keep a close eye on because it's the first project planning to assign control to a service nervous system, which is a kind of advanced community DAO. This is tech that's just coming online right now in beta form on the internet computer. And they're working on this as we speak. And soon that DAO will be in control of OpenChat, and it's going to run a decentralization sale that puts the community 100% in charge, as well as raising funds that can be used for things like feature bounties and bug bounties to fuel even more R&D. And once this thing's totally decentralized, it's going to sort of lean into the social fi aspects of its functionality. So social fi is social media combined with DeFi, and that means that chat accounts will start behaving like crypto wallets that hold ICP, Bitcoin, Ether, NFTs, and things like that. And you're going to be able to send tokens with chat messages and much, much more than that. Another really interesting aspect of this social fi service, which I think demonstrates how many new services should be thinking about growth, is that it's going to be continually airdropping DAO governance tokens randomly to users who are active, who are referring other users, who are participating in tasks like content moderation. Because in this new Web3 world, users are going to be owners of these online services, but they're also going to be part of the team that runs them. And that's how they're going to overcome the sort of monopolistic Web 2 services run by big tech. They're going to embrace millions of users and enlist them, turn them into the advocacy team with the objective of getting, rapid viral growth that allows them to become, giants and bring billions of people into the decentralized ecosystem. Something else that's just coming online now, which you might consider playing around with in the hackathon, is that the chain key cryptography that powers the internet computer is being surfaced through APIs that are going to allow you to control token balances and invoke code on other blockchains directly without any bridges or anything like that. This is completely game-changing. And it's going to allow you to combine different blockchains together and to create a kind of meta-glue that enables you to, for example, create a DEX on the internet computer, which allows you to trade ICP for Bitcoin in which the Bitcoin is just sent to, an address that belongs to the DEX on the Bitcoin blockchain. There's no wrapping or bridges involved whatsoever. So that's something you should look into, and that's available right now, or at least the first iteration, which applies to Bitcoin, is available right now. But I think there's other functionality coming on that will enable you to interact with, for example, Ethereum. So as you can imagine, all of this has involved an awful lot of work, and we've been working on this for a very long time, pretty relentlessly. I think I started talking about Divinity in 2015. The Divinity Foundation was founded in 2016, and we just had this very brilliant team of engineers and researchers from academia, crypto, and the world's leading technology organizations. Currently, we have more than 260 staff, the vast majority of whom are in R&D. It's a really extraordinary team. It's probably one of the strongest teams of all of tech. Engineers, researchers, and cryptographers have been published, I think, in more than 1,500 publications, on the way to 100,000 citations, 194 patents we counted, and that was just from the people we spoke to. And the team has what I call a blockchain maximalist ethos. That means we believe in these, potential social impact that blockchain can have, and particularly, of course, what the internet computer can deliver. And we wish to save the world from compromise and enable everything to be built 100% on blockchain. And we want to make sure that the blockchain community gets the advanced technology required to complete its mission. Since Genesis, May 21 last year, growth has been pretty good. About 55% of the total supply of ICP is now locked inside the network nervous system, this DAO that actually controls the whole network, another revolutionary aspect of the internet computer. 3.5 billion TVL locked, 44% of that's staked in what we call 8-year neurons. More than 70,000 ICP have been burned. This blockchain produces blocks at a pretty prodigious rate. It's already produced 785 million blocks in less than a year, but it's accelerating, and eventually it's going to create trillions of blocks. In that time, there've been 3.4 million update transactions of more than 75 billion transactions when including both update and query transactions. There have been 1.9 million internet identity anchors created. There's more than 1 terabyte of data stored inside Canister smart contracts, and there are 519 node machines in the network currently. There are hundreds more in data centers waiting for configurations. There are 56 independent node providers. Those are people that run these node machines, and currently 35 subnet blockchains. Don't confuse subnet blockchains with what you see on some other blockchain. Internet computer subnets are combined together to make a single unified blockchain environment using chain key cryptography. So in this past year, Divinity has accepted 240 grant applications, which is pretty impressive. There are more than 1,600 public GitHub repos containing internet computer code, and there have been more than 80,000 code commits, which I'm sure you'll agree is an astounding achievement. A couple of other projects to draw your attention to. One's called Discover. I think those guys are have raised or in the process of raising a lot of venture capital right now. They've got more than 100,000 users and more than 700 portals that have been created on that site. Another one called Entrepot, which has hosted, I think, more than 200,000 NFT transactions. And what's really remarkable there is that despite hosting so many NFT transactions, it's only cost Entrepot $620 in transaction fees, which I think speaks to the efficiency of the internet computer. So, we want you to join thousands of other devs now building, dApps and services on the internet computer. And join this internet computer movement to realize Web3. Here's a little diagram showing how people are building equivalents to, well-known Web 2 services, that run in decentralized form and eventually be controlled by community DAOs and be fully tokenized. And if you're building one of these and you're not listed, I apologize. There are literally hundreds of services being built out right now. So big trends for 2022. DeFi is going to be huge by the end of the year. We're only just actually activating a lot of functionality that's really needed for DeFi. Once you see a lot of these services fully decentralizing by assigning them control to community DAOs, those community DAOs will, of course, create governance tokens, which are then dispersed to users in a decentralization sale. And you're going to see an explosion of things like DEXs that enable people to exchange one governance token for another, and so on and so forth. We've been discussing really interesting social-fi projects already. I know there are a bunch of people working on GameFi, which of course combines games and gaming with DeFi. And there's lots of really interesting aspects to that. You've got to work out how to stop users cheating. You can use what we call the random tape, which is this perfect, unpredictable, unmanipulable, unstoppable randomness that the internet computer makes available, and many other things. There are even people working on multiplayer, real-time multiplayer environments using the internet computer as a game server effectively. And this is just, taking it even a step further than open chat, using blockchain to store and process chat messages. And then, of course, there's the metaverse. If any of you are interested in what might happen there, go to ic.gallery. I think it's an early version. I don't know if they've shared the betas and so on, but they've created a metaverse environment using Unity, and I know those guys are working on multiplayer stuff too. So, final thing I'll say is, there's a participation bonus, if you like, for really developing your internet computer skills. And that is that internet computer skills are going to become a superpower. And the reason is, software is eating the world, but smart contracts will eat software. And to imagine why, just consider that when you build a system on the internet computer, you don't need to protect it with a firewall. It's automatically tamper-proof, just like smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. And then consider that the world spends $172 billion a year on cybersecurity, firewalls and SIEM logs. At some point, the enterprise world is going to start seeing this as very, very attractive. Cloud services cost the world $500 billion a year, and overall, we spend $5 trillion a year globally on IT. And I believe the internet computer is going to simplify IT and help us move past a lot of problems that have, bedeviled the corporate world for a long time. So, this is a great opportunity to be involved with an ecosystem that, is just right at the beginning of the growth curve. Awareness isn't that high yet. Imagine what's going to happen when industry awareness grows from the 0.5% or whatever it is today to sort of 95%. We're going to see some really exciting things happen. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for taking part in this hackathon. And most importantly, good luck.
So, hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Adriana Hammaker. I'm the founder of Hip Geeks Media and the senior correspondent for Decrypt. And this is a fireside chat I've been looking forward to for a while because on the occasion of Dfinity's Supernova Hackathon, I'm speaking to the inspirational founder of Polychain Capital, and that's Olaf Carlson-Wee. Welcome, Olaf.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Very excited.
So you've got a great deal of experience, which kind of belies your looks, I've got to say. I mean, you started off at Coinbase as one of their first employees. You were one of the very first crypto-focused VCs. So you were really early to everything, and you must be well into the pulse of what's happening with Web3. So I'd like you first to tell us, if you can, about your journey. And in that context, what advice would you have for the entrepreneurs who are embarking on the global hackathon for the internet computer?
Yes, absolutely. So I first got into Bitcoin in the summer of 2011, and just really went down the rabbit hole, became very immersed in it. I, the next year, wrote my undergraduate thesis on Bitcoin and kind of the long-term implications if we were to see a sort of a separation of money and state, so to speak. Joined Coinbase as the first employee and scaled up my team and that company quite a bit for 3.5 years. Most of that time I was working as the head of risk, working on anti-fraud, security, compliance, things like that. I launched Polychain in 2016 because I saw a huge opportunity to invest in, founders that were building effectively decentralized protocols, not necessarily for-profit businesses. And there was just a huge gap where nobody really knew how to fund somebody building a decentralized protocol. So I launched Polychain and started investing in this category. I followed Dfinity from the very beginning when they kind of first came out in kind of late 2016, early 2017 with some of their early research and early approach, and invested later that year in 2017. And one thing I've always been excited about is how could we actually build more like full web stack type consumer experiences embedded inside blockchains. And so it's taking this beyond DeFi and moving to, applications where not only the underlying, financial logic is embedded inside blockchains, but also the consumer interface. So, the actual web UI. And then, how could we use token incentives to bootstrap network effects outside of liquidity and lending pools like we see in DeFi, but things like social media networks or video games that also have this kind of chicken egg network effect problem that we could potentially solve with token incentives. So I've been, in crypto for a long time and always interested in what's coming next. So just very excited to be here and talk about the future of all this.
It sounds to me from what you're saying then that it's almost not really the sort of financial applications that need to be developed now. It's the consumer facing ones. That's the kind of exciting area now.
Yeah, because if you look at DeFi today, it's very clear there's traction, right? There's over $250 billion deposited in DeFi contracts. And this is, the whole category really only emerged in a very real way in sort of, late 2018, early 2019. So, and it took a while to start really taking off. It really didn't start taking off until mid 2020. So, it's seen precipitous growth in less than 2 years. And so it's clear there's traction. It's clear there's a market there. One of the oddities of it, though, is that all of the web interfaces that interact with those DeFi protocols are still hosted on centralized servers. So, when you want to go interact with a popular DeFi protocol, the actual interface you're using as an average consumer is not decentralized or tamper-proof, and it's not sort of resilient in the way that the underlying DeFi protocol's financial logic is resilient, right? And no single party could sort of alter that logic. So we have like this nice hybrid today, and I think we've made a lot of progress. But the next step is making the application that the user is consuming also open source, not just the underlying financial logic.
So also, basically, you can't move things, can you, at the moment? Gaming is stuck in silos, so we haven't yet even touched on some of the things that can be done with NFTs. I think you've spoken a little bit about that. That's maybe one of the big things that we should be kind of looking forward to in this year anyway.
Yep. And what I would say to, you asked about entrepreneurs, I would just say focus on pragmatic user needs, right? Build with a user in mind, and make sure that you have an early set of passionate users that really, really want your product. If you can, find that early set of users that want the product, it's quite likely you can scale it to 100 times that number of users.
Wow.
But I do think it's important to build, with a concrete end user in mind, where you're really solving a problem for them or providing a service that they don't otherwise have access to. So I always am for sort of pragmatism when it comes to founders building in crypto. Just make sure you understand who you're building for and why your architecture or your approach is providing value for that user.
Now, recently on Real Vision, you spoke about the evolution of blockchain that's kind of enabling all these things to be built. And it went from Bitcoin, Ethereum, now we've got the internet computer, Dfinity. And you highlighted that ICP is not competing with Ethereum. Rather, it's creating a new paradigm where financial logic and first-time web-like logic are embedded into smart contracts. So why is storing data, images, and all of these things directly on the blockchain for the first time revolutionary? Why is that?
So, it's funny. I had this very similar line of questions around when DeFi was emerging, which is, why we already have crypto exchanges. Like, why does it matter to embed an exchange inside a blockchain, right? We already have lending desks. Why do we need lending pools inside blockchains? And it turns out that there's a whole host of reasons why the decentralized architecture is better for the user. One is sort of counterparty risk and trust. So when you're executing a trade in a decentralized exchange, there's pros and cons. In general, the cost is a bit higher because you need all the nodes to validate that trade. But you sort of have high uptime guarantees. For example, your account, so to speak, can't get shut down or frozen because you're interacting directly with the protocol, not with a centralized service provider who may have other interests or maybe doesn't like the way you're using the platform or something like that. So you don't have any of that platform risk. Also, all of the software is open source and replicable, forkable. So you can copy paste all of that logic and extend it. So whatever you like about a particular decentralized exchange or decentralized lending pool, if you have a tweak that you want to make, you can actually copy paste the whole thing and relaunch it with that tweak. What that means is, because you have the ability for any developer in the world to press play and launch a new application, you have an incredible pace of innovation, right? It's all open source. It's really, really accessible. It's hard to go register a company and get regulatory licensure and go out and launch a crypto exchange. Relatively speaking, it's much, much easier to just press play and deploy a decentralized exchange protocol. So the pace of innovation is massive. And there's these other very neat things about it, which, for example, one is that once you log in with your public key as a user, you're sort of logged in forever. And you don't have to do this kind of email password type confirmation. As long as you continue to have access to the funds behind that public key, you can sort of perpetually stay logged into that end service. So it turns your public-private key pair sort of into an online login or identity authentication system, which is pretty neat. So, across all this, there's all of these benefits to DeFi relative to centralized exchanges. I do think over time and kind of long term, we will see the majority of financial transactions, both inside crypto and in other financial markets, all move to this blockchain-based substrate over time. I do think it is the global clearinghouse and sort of global financial layer of the future. I think that most of what I just said about DeFi and the reasons why it has benefits applies basically to what you might refer to as a Web3 application, like a social media network. The pace of innovation is massive. As a user, you can't really get shut out of the system. You can't get, deplatformed. The forkability and interoperability, what people often call composability across applications is massive. So, in social media today, you're sort of siloed in really all these marketplaces, social media applications. For example, my good reputation as an Uber passenger, I can't take to Airbnb and gain a bit of credibility on that platform, right? I have sort of siloed reputation across these platforms. In addition, you don't have good interoperability. So if I click a link inside Twitter, that takes me to YouTube, it's kind of this janky cross application process. And as much as they can, those services are trying to gatekeep and silo all of their end users so that they're not really leaving the underlying platform. In the Web3 context, every platform is, interoperable with every other one. So you get a much more unified experience in the long term. As an end user, it's going to, that interoperability and lack of sort of lock-in from all the underlying platforms, I think has huge implications for what kind of social media experiences of the future look like. I think they're a lot less extractive. I think they benefit the user more than the platform. And I think you get back to a world where creators actually have a good relationship with their platforms. Today, if you talk to anybody whose business is run on Instagram or run on YouTube, they all hate the underlying platforms that they are forced to operate on. The fees are extractive that are charged to those creators, even though the creators are bringing all the value to that platform, other than basically the technology infrastructure, right? Like YouTube is hosting the servers. So if we can move to a world where the servers are hosted inside a blockchain, now we can reward those creators appropriately, which is that, they're really the ones bringing all the value.
So this is a hugely exciting time. It's really a kind of shift, do you think, in one kind of application that people have been focusing on at the moment, DeFi, NFTs, to kind of a whole breadth of services that are going to make it easier for users and that are on chain. But what do you hope that the dev teams that are working on the internet computer come up with then to advance us towards mainstream adoption? You spoke about low-hanging fruit before. Is it easy to predict what things will take off? You're the guy to ask, right?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's always obvious in hindsight, though. Just things I've been thinking about, for example, take a mobile game, and a simple addictive mobile game, kind of a Farmville or a Candy Crush type game. I think that adding crypto economic incentives to bootstrap your player base and, offer in-game objects that you can sell for real money to other players and are interoperable across this game with your other games that your studio is making. So, if you're a fanatic Farmville player, when you come onto the next game created by that studio or even by another studio, you can bring, whatever you've earned from that previous game into the next game.
The big game companies, of course, are not really very much on board with this, or are they? Because it sort of strikes me that there's a kind of, NFTs are a very kind of mixed medium for them at the moment. Have they bought into all the advantages that putting gaming on Web3 has, really?
Yeah, I think crypto supports startups, not the incumbent, across everything. You're never going to see the big institutional players, either in tech or in finance, be the early movers. Overall, they stand to lose. It's not quite that simple, but net, if they just don't do anything here, it's the startups and outsiders who benefit from this entire new paradigm. So to me, it's a great area to be an entrepreneur in, because you're the big incumbents. I do think long term they're really threatened by this. even if they don't realize it yet. And they're not going to be the early movers here. So this classic question of, what if Google copies my startup? I think is very unlikely in this case. I think you're basically competing. The hard thing is product market fit. If you can find product market fit, you have open ocean to scale in this environment and this landscape. So it's kind of trading off the competition problem for the product market fit problem, which is here it's all unproven and it's all new classes of applications. So it's very hard to tell what will work. You don't have like this really, really clear track record of XYZ type of application working. But in exchange for that trade-off, you're not competing with any of the big corporates. You just sort of have open ocean to scale.
But the idea you said that, with gaming, of being able to move all your stuff from just one game to another, I mean, what gamer wouldn't want to do that, right?
Yeah, I think the end customer wins in the new paradigm. And I think the entrepreneurs and startups win. I think that the incumbents broadly lose.
Good. Well, yeah, I know you agree with me, because I've heard a few interviews where you've said how you appreciate some of the kind of more revolutionary aspects of this technology, of which there are plenty. DAOs last year were one of them. I mean, not revolutionary last year because they actually emerged several years ago, but really, really took off last year. And we're seeing the kind of younger generations really jump on board this. And I've been speaking to artists recently who have been enthusing about NFTs and, how they enable people like, who are versed in visual effects, not just to work for a big corporation, but, to work for themselves, to have their own company. So I'm just wondering if, if you can make a living producing art, if you can work for yourself, whether it's a DAO or the open internet or, self-sovereign corporation, whatever you call it, could this be the way the internet gets recreated?
If they can, we may see a much more shared ownership model where, people who are users of these platforms share in the upside and are partial owners of the platform, right? So if you look at the number of people that use Facebook or Twitter versus the number of people that own that asset, the number of users is dramatically higher than the number of owners. I think in a sort of DAO Web3 future, you see that being a much more tightly coupled number, right? Where maybe half the users are partial owners or something like that, because you're basically subsidizing the early users, but really you might subsidize basically every user by paying them in some form with ownership in the DAO and governance in the underlying platform. So I think we sort of return the capital structure to the average user, and we get the power of large numbers, where instead of $1 billion being coming from 2 or 3, massive ultra high net worth investors, instead you get $1 billion that's, basically 10 million people putting up $100, right? So I do think you transform capitalism a little bit with that sort of fast crowdfunding. We've seen stuff like this with Constitution DAO, right? Where over $40 million was raised, relatively small, commit size on average from the average participant there. And that sort of spontaneous crowdfunding, it's unprecedented. We've never seen something like that before.
Going from DAOs to VCs. Now, you at Polychain and Chris Dixon at Andreessen Horowitz and plenty of other VCs. I mean, you've all backed Dfinity and the Internet Computer. So just hoping to get from you, what's unique about this particular platform for yourselves? I mean, well, for you in particular, when it's compared to Ethereum or all the other EVM type blockchains there are out there right now?
I think the EVM backwards compatibility has been like a killer mechanism to bootstrap a user base. We saw this with, Binance Smart Chain, with systems like Avalanche. But that said, I do think that it's early in the lifetime of blockchain technologies to sort of say, okay, there's going to be this one standard that's going to last forever. So I really like, these radical experiments, in ways to build a blockchain architecture. So the thing I like about Dfinity is there's just this trade-off up front, which is, okay, we're going to have really, really intense hardware requirements for our node operators. Okay, so when you say that, it goes against some of the original architecture planning for, say, Bitcoin and Ethereum, which broadly is that I should be able to have a MacBook and run a node, right, on my MacBook and participate in validation and consensus. Once you sort of say, what if we could have people that ran more like server racks, more sophisticated hardware level operations? Could we still get a really decentralized network, but wouldn't it be way faster because everybody has connectivity needs, uptime needs, and basically hardware requirements that are more stringent? And so, that's in a really basic sense, and layered on top of that, obviously a bunch of super sophisticated advancements in consensus and cryptography. I think Dfinity just made a very interesting trade-off, which is, okay, let's see what these more advanced node requirements lead to. And what it turns out is it just radically changes what it's possible to embed inside the blockchain, right? So it makes a trade-off, but the trade-off, I think, unlocks like huge new suites of applications. And, I think that it's just very, I think, pragmatic to move kind of down the spectrum. That's sort of a hardware trade-off relative then to performance for the end users. So there's a whole suite of users that I think would rather pay, a penny for a transaction instead of $50. And it would allow them to interact also with more expressive application interfaces that have images, video, etc. Inside, the Dfinity system, versus, you just can't build this stuff in Ethereum. You just can't. It's not like it's slower or more expensive. It's not possible. So unlocking stuff that's possible, and having some like hardware trade-offs to do it, I just think it's a super interesting design space. So everything comes with trade-offs. Ethereum made, amazing trade-offs that led to a huge new suite of applications beyond what Bitcoin was capable of. And I think that Dfinity is similarly like a radical reimagining, right? It's a huge step up, in this kind of experimental landscape. It doesn't mean that Ethereum is makes Bitcoin irrelevant, and it doesn't mean Dfinity makes Ethereum irrelevant. They can all coexist at different places alongside this kind of trade-off spectrum. But I am very excited about it because I think a lot of things, you see out there are sort of they're kind of Ethereum 1.5, or like they're trying to be like a little step up, but they're still caught in the Ethereum framework. I personally am more excited by stuff that's radical reimagining. It's not just the Litecoin to Ethereum. You know what I mean? It's really the next step.
And that's basically, to wrap things up, what we're expecting all the developers and the entrepreneurs who are taking part in Supernova to be doing, taking this kind of radical next step, right? So, I mean, you just finally, you once said you like those ideas best that almost sound too crazy to be true. I don't know if I'm paraphrasing you properly, but I mean, is that still true? Should these guys then be going out and thinking of ideas that it's almost too much, but it works? Is that the key? What's the final message you'd give to them?
Yeah, I mean, it's just that when you move to this radical new paradigm, it takes time. I mean, Ethereum launched in 2015. We didn't get the word DeFi for over 3 years. So Ethereum was, summer 2015. We didn't get the word DeFi until fall 2018, right? So it's just to keep in mind that, and then NFTs, they existed in Ethereum, but they really didn't take off in any meaningful way until kind of late 2020, early 2021. So to me, it just, when you have this radical new application framework, it's hard for developers, it's hard for users to wrap their head around what it is and what's possible. But it's up to entrepreneurs to kind of build that stuff. And the early entrepreneurs that believed in DeFi before it was a word and believed in NFTs before it was a trend, those are the entrepreneurs that end up building, massive projects that affect millions of people's lives. So I think it's kind of the right place to build, but it's risky, right? You have to sort of be a futurist. There's no validation yet.
But that's exactly how you got to where you are now, right? I mean, so perhaps that's where we should end things, because I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. I'm really excited if somebody comes up with something that's kind of super radical, super innovationary. And I'd just like to thank you, Olaf Carlson-Wee, for talking to me and sharing some of your thoughts. It's been super interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for the conversation.
Next, we'll revisit a conversation from Dfinity's Andreas Rosberg, the co-creator of WebAssembly and Motoko, the native programming language for the Internet computer. Then, we'll catch up with a few founders on their journey building on the Internet computer.
I'm Andreas Rosberg, and I'm one of the main designers of Motoko, Dfinity's new programming language for the Internet computer. And I'm also one of the co-creators of WebAssembly, the new code format that runs in all your browsers nowadays. If you're a programmer who is familiar with the common breed of mainstream programming languages like Java, JavaScript, or C#, then you should feel familiar and at home pretty quickly with Motoko. In particular, we took out all the special knowledge that you might need to have on other blockchain programming languages. None of that is needed with Motoko. You can just use it as if it was an ordinary programming language. The Internet computer adopts WebAssembly as its virtual machine, which means that there aren't that many languages available yet that is independent of what the platform actually is, what hardware you're running on. It's like a virtual processor. One central design decision with Motoko was that it's going to be a typed language. Over the last 1-2 decades, there has been a rise in the popularity of dynamic languages like JavaScript and Python and these. But it turns out usually this approach doesn't scale well. And we also wanted a language that is perfectly adapted to the environment of the Internet computer, which once you write larger programs with larger teams that evolve over a longer period of time, the lack of type system support can really get in the way because it becomes harder to maintain these things. It becomes harder to communicate intent between different programmers on the team and in the documentation. In the case of Motoko, there's no way around the type system that would allow anybody to break these properties. Not yourself, but also no library code you might be using or anybody else. So that is a very important factor for us to providing these safety guarantees. One of the central features that Motoko provides is the notion of an actor. So an actor is like an object that you can send messages to that is built into the language and maps to the platform nicely. We have built-in syntax for expressing actors, sending messages, defining message receivers, for accessing the context that is available about the message. We also have special language features that allow you to program with this asynchronous messaging in a more natural, direct style, like the notion of a future or an asynchronous computation, for example. The Internet computer is structured around the notion of a canister. A canister you can think of as its own distributed application, but it's not an isolated application. On the Internet computer, these applications can communicate with each other through messaging. And Motoko is designed to map this notion of a canister directly onto the notion of an actor in the programming language. So you can have multiple actors, which are kind of like multiple applications or servers communicating with each other by sending messages to each other. The Motoko compiler takes your source code, runs it through a parser, generates some abstract syntax tree, does type checking on that, all the usual things, except that in the end, what it spits out is not machine code, but it is WebAssembly code. And that's very much by design. Since the platform is open, These other canisters are not necessarily actually programs written in Motoko. They all just are based on WebAssembly. That's their basic language. And then on top of that, we have this messaging system where a Motoko canister can communicate with canisters written in any other language. This interface definition language, again, is completely independent of Motoko. So any language that you use to write an application on the internet computer can communicate through it. One thing that developers will probably find interesting about Motoko is that it supports orthogonal persistence. Orthogonal persistence is an old idea where a program basically stays alive. So when you write a Motoko program, you don't have to deal with a database or a file system to store your data, to save it to. You just imagine that you're working with the data structures that your programming language provides. So this is inherent in the Internet Computer Platform, and Motoko makes use of that.
Hi, my name is Karsten. I'm calling in from San Francisco. I'm going to walk through some of the material that may be very useful for you if you're participating in our Supernova Hackathon. What you see here is the Supernova website, and at the top, there is a button that takes you to a dev post where you can register to sign up for the hackathon. When we go down on the page, you will see some very useful resources. We have our developer resource website. If I click this one, we have a collection of links of articles and GitHub repos and sample projects that should inspire you and should be very useful if you are new to the internet computer, even if you have experience with the internet computer. See what other has done, how they've solved different problems. Below the link for the developer resources, we have a link for our developer Discord server. This is a great place to meet other internet computer developers, and you can ask questions or share your own experiences there. If we go further down on the website, one thing to notice here is that we have done quite a few workshops already, and you can watch the recordings. Some of these recordings are taking you from scratch, where you have like an empty code editor and take you through the process of creating a dApp. I invite you to join us for our office hours. You can join just to listen in and see what other people are working on, or you can ask questions. So feel free to stop by our office hours as often as you can. Let's go back to the top. So what I want to look at next is our smartcontracts.org, the documentation website. And on this website, you will find sample code. There's a wiki. The wiki is different from the documentation in the way that it goes deeper on some of the topics. So if you need a deeper understanding of some of the things, you would typically find the answer on the wiki. There's a link to our community forum and, of course, the Supernova website. But let's dive into the documentation by clicking the Start Building button. What you see here is how to develop a Hello World dApp in 10 minutes. And I think this is a really good starting point for any developer. Even if you have tried to develop some things on the IC before, or if you're brand new to the IC, this basically takes you through all the steps to deploy a dApp that has both a front end and a back end. What you see here is the end result. This is what you're ending up with. As it shows here too, you can also make a call directly to the back end if you don't want to use the front end. The things that are covered in this tutorial is actually everything you need to go through if you want to start developing on the IC, if you want to build a dApp, if you want to deploy it locally, and if you want to deploy it on the IC so it's live so you can see it from anywhere. It walks through the process of installing the tools if you don't have that done already, how to set up a new project. And this is a great starting point for any dApp you want to build. Even if you want to build something bigger, when you run this create project, then you get all the files you need to get it going. I'll not go into details what is in this project and how you do it. I think that's great exercise for you to do on your own. But I will just go down to the bottom here. And this section shows you how to deploy it onto the IC. So it's public available for everyone. If you're interested in looking at the files without going through this process, we can take a look at the projects in GitHub. Here we see an overview of the files that are generated automatically when you run the create new dApp. Some things to notice here is the dfx.json. It will show you the two canisters, the canister smart contracts, one for the front end and one for the back end. And in the source, you will also see this is the back end where we have, this is in Motoko. And we have one for our front end, which is in JavaScript and in HTML. And this is the structure of a typical project. Let's go back to the documentation. We have different languages that we support on the IC. So let's go take a look at that. In here, we have listed 3 languages: Rust, Motoko, and Candid. Rust is a general language that can be used across many platforms and for many types of applications, where Motoko is our own in-house developed programming language specifically for developing dApps on the IC. Candid is the interface between the front end and the back end. So we have developed our own language that we use to expose the back end's functionalities to the front end. And Candid also exposes this so you can make a call to the backend canister from a terminal. Let's take a look at Motoko. In here, we have a lot of the concepts. If you're new to Motoko, there's a lot of good information about the syntax, how you get started, the different types, all these things that are very basic and fundamental to the language. And when you want to start coding, we have a language quick reference, which is very useful, how the different types work. We have different libraries that are available, how you access them. So everything you need to get started is in this section under Motoko. It also shows some examples of how to use some of the different concepts, and it goes into details. And you will find plenty of examples here. Both Rust and Motoko are supported languages for building dApps on the IC. Whether you should choose Rust or Motoko is really up to you. If you know Rust already, that will be easier and you'll get productive faster. You can do the same as you can if you use Motoko. Motoko is a little bit easier to learn typically. If you don't have any Rust experience and you want to build on the IC, then Motoko could be an easier solution to get up to speed. It is very well documented, as we saw, and there are plenty of code samples in our Dfinity/examples repo on GitHub. I recommend going through some of our tutorials. We have some of them here in our documentation. In our documentation, we cover the 3 languages, Rust, Motoko, and Candid, but you're not limited to those 3 languages. You can develop dApps in many different languages. Here are a few examples. We have Motoko and Rust CDKs, but you can develop your front end in any JavaScript-based framework. And the community has contributed agents for Java, Python, Go, and more. And everything that can be compiled to WebAssembly can actually also run in a canister. So you're not limited to the options that we show you in the documentation, but that's what we support and where we have the best chances of helping you if you run into problems. The developer forum and the Discord server are great resources if you get stuck or if you need advice about best practice. There are always a lot of developers who are happy to help you get unstuck or to advise you which way to go. And I encourage you to also join our office hours that we run regularly during the hackathon, even if you're just interested in listening into what other people are working on and what kind of challenges they have. Or maybe if you have a question, feel free to ask. We are there to help you succeed with your project. So I wish you the best of luck, and please reach out if you have any questions.
Hey everyone, my name is Rick Porter and I'm calling out of Portland, Oregon, and I'm one of the founders of Discover. Discover is a decentralized social network that's built completely on the internet computer. That means the front end and the back end are storing data and retrieving data, and updating data completely on chain. So every aspect of Discover is on chain. And what makes Discover unique is that it's a completely decentralized social network that's going to be community owned and community governed. So Discover was kind of created through deep investigation into how do you actually build applications on the internet computer. It really started off as, is it possible to do assembly script? Write assembly script inside of a canister and deploy it onto the network? And the short answer is yes, it was. And at the time it was. But what's more interesting is, as I was messing around with the internet computer and playing with the data models, I realized, you could actually probably build a social network on top of this. And it was a probably at the time. The network wasn't launched yet. It wasn't completely ready for prime time. It was pre-mainnet launch, let's say. So through the investigation, I was like, wow, I could get real time here. I have queries that are happening in hundreds of milliseconds and updates happening what seemed to be about 2 seconds at the time. And I was able to retrieve quite a bit of data over time. So I started fleshing out, what does a data model look like for a social network? What are the generics that you might get when actually building something like that? So we put together a high level data model, which everything's just content, right? And then you just have users, and then you have these kind of channels and sub-channels. And so we had a pretty complex data model, which we thought represented what a social network might use. So we decided to launch early and test early. And this is the time during Sodium. And as soon as we put things up, users started using it. We started getting logins. People started posting posts, and people started replying to comments. And it was really it wasn't like, oh, well, we're going to full on build a social network now. It was like, well, the users are having this problem, so let's fix it. And I say we probably recursively went through that conversation in infinitism to try to solve every single minor problem that the user is having. But throughout these iterations, these smart contracts or the canisters where the code exists they're upgradable, right? So it's not like we had to take everything down and put it back up and give them a new endpoint to actually talk to or a new smart contract address to use. We just had to progressively update the canister itself. So we were able to start adding new features, right? But we always found a solution. We always found a way to be able to handle the load that is required to maintain proper user growth and a proper user experience. And even to this day, we're far more than a year has already passed, and we still have those quick responsive pages with far more complex models than we started off with. But the journey was really interesting. It was, what kind of tokenomics do we need in place? What kind of governance tools do these users actually need? What should the user experience actually feel like? And that's when I started working closely with the founding team, and specifically Alex. And how do we write a message about this, right? So this really started off as, is it possible? And then once we discovered, yeah, this is actually possible. It is actually possible to build a real-time social network on the internet computer that gives you that Web 2 feel that's completely happening within inside of Web 3. So we knew the goal was to build this, to continue to build this and flesh out all the different user journeys and stories. But we needed a team to do it. And so we started growing our team, and it was very small for a long time. I would say Discover for the first year was about 3 people, which was just enough to handle the amount of users that we are getting. But obviously we needed to grow a larger team to be able to add all the features necessary to make a social network work. And, I don't want to dive into every little feature on Discover, but we have NFT gating. We have these portals, which are sub communities that exist on Discover, and you can gate these communities through NFTs and through NFT ownership. You can even gate these communities through traits on NFT. So if your NFT has a hat and you want to make it so that only people who have that hat can have conversations within your community, you can actually do that. And, we have typical social features like, follow. Follow is something that we sat on for a while, but because these are upgradable, because these canisters are upgradable, you can continue to evolve the model that exists. You can continue to evolve what is actually happening with inside of the backend. What's also interesting is, the internet computer, it's interoperable, right? So you have a network of canisters that you can access. And it's just like any other blockchain where you have a network of smart contracts that can communicate with each other. So we're starting to work more with the ecosystem and starting to leverage other ecosystem applications. So like an example is we have Stoics, which is a wallet, and they also have an NFT standard called EXT, which is widely used on Discover at this point. So we have like an actual integration with these NFTs. We have the same thing with DIP 721 by Fleek and the CCC standard. So because of this interoperability, we get access not only to the things that we're building for Discover and that are Discover specific things, but we're able to access all the other ecosystem projects and leverage their creations too. Anybody who's building on the IC can provide functionality for others on the internet computer. So that's how this plays into that interoperability, is that we're really working together to build something that we can all use. And this is the point of this ecosystem. At the point of we are right now, it's there's tons of developers. It's very easy to get help and have conversations on how to overcome typical problems that you might face while developing an application. But even more is if you need to collaborate on something. Hey, here's a service that our team doesn't necessarily have the desire to build, or here's a service that might be useful for other projects on the internet computer. So how about you guys build it and open source it, and it's something that we can integrate with. And NFT gifting, going back to it real quick, is just a perfect example of that. It's designed in a way that could be used by pretty much any platform on the internet computer to gift to their users and target content that they like. And that plays back into like, how are we leveraging airdrops to, our airdrops are open, right? Like everyone's principles are public. If you create your own community on Discover, you can whitelist users and bulk grab those principles and airdrop them too. So we don't necessarily have control over these airdrops. Any user can airdrop any collection of users on Discover as a platform as it is right now. Thank you everyone for listening. And if you are interested in working at Discover, we're hiring a lot of people. We're hiring back-end engineers, front-end engineers, product, UI, UX, and community managers. So check out our jobs. Also, please check out the platform and give us feedback. You can find us at discover.one, dscvr.one, and sign up, play with the platform. And we have a feature request and bugs area. So please leave some messages there and we will always check them out. We read it every day. And thank you again.
Hi, my name is Max. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Infinity Swap. We're a swap staking protocol built out on the IC. So you could think of something like Uniswap, Balancer. We're kind of like that, but on the internet computer. I first heard about Dfinity about, I think it was in 2017. So that might be 4 or 5 years ago now. And I just thought, wow, the technology that they're building with the new consensus protocol using BLS signatures was just something that was so out of this world. I had to follow this project. And I think the first day that they, enabled like the email subscriptions to the newsletter, I was there checking them out. So, and it's amazing to see the journey that they've been on over these past years, and that they've actually built something that we can build on today, and build, really cool tech, NFTs that don't, live on chain, that don't need to be stored anywhere else. Super scalable blockchain with canisters that kind of, are almost independent, and there aren't any bottlenecks that one kind of canister will necessarily cause for another. So yeah, it's been super interesting, and I've been going on this journey with my co-founder Alessandro Rietman, who's the CTO of Infinity Swap. We've known each other for a long time, but about a year ago, we were talking about technology and what we should do. I think Alex was just putting down a startup he was working on, and as was I. And we heard about Dfinity. So by chance, we happened to meet each other, and I said, "Hey, Alex, what do you think about the internet computer? Wouldn't it be great to build DeFi on the IC?" So we went out to a burger place in London, in Soho in London. And I think it was like maybe a half an hour meeting where we were just chatting about DeFi and the IC, and absolutely transformative. I think that was the best 30-minute burger of my life, because we decided, actually we're going to build something on the IC. And, since then we just went hammer and tongs straight at it, checking out the technology and seeing what we could do. And since then, we've taken on some venture capital funding. So we had Polychain Beacon Fund invest in the project, and they're also investing in other projects on the IC. So if you've got something really cool or great you want to build, I think the money's there. And then we later had Parafi as well. We were quite well known in the space, invested in Uniswap, and this enabled us to expand the team from just Alex and myself hacking away to about 20 people. Focused very heavily on dev, but also on the marketing. And of course, we'd be super excited to get to hear about some of the projects that other people are working on in the space. If you're building something in DeFi, or just excited about the IC, Rust, Motoko, the languages that are offered there, reach out to us. We'd love to chat about it and hear more about what you're getting up to. Infinity Swap itself is a platform to create, stake, and swap tokens on the IC. So we are very closely aligned with what I guess Uniswap does for Ethereum or Balancer. We have a number of really cool features like bootstrap liquidity pools. So that basically enables you to start up a liquidity pool on the IC with less capital than you might need using other protocols. So you won't need as much ICP, for instance, when you get started creating a pool. And that can be really useful for bootstrap projects. You don't have much funding. You're thinking, how can I raise for the project? Well, you can do it through Infinity Swap, because we've got useful features like that. But we've also got our wallet application, and this really ties in a really cool way with what the internet computer is doing with the cross-chain solution. So if you've heard about ChainKey, the Bitcoin, basically Bitcoin interoperability, Ethereum interoperability, you'll be able to transact in Bitcoin and Ethereum through the wallet. So the internet computer is not just for ICP. It's not just for the tokens native to the chain. I think it's going to be the hub that's going to connect all the other coins on other chains, and you have liquidity coming from all other places. So right now is a great time to build. If you're thinking, not just about Dfinity, but where the broader blockchain ecosystem is heading to. And hope you enjoy Supernova Hackathon. I think it's a great opportunity. I've never heard of a hackathon with $6 million in prizes, so it's going to be really crazy.
Hey everyone, I'm Bob Bodley, co-founder and chief product officer at Tonic Labs. Tonic Labs is one of the companies that has been building on the internet computer since the beginning, so since before mainnet launch. Tonic Labs is a company building on the internet computer, and we have tools and products that help creators and businesses and others successfully launch NFTs and interact with NFTs and use NFTs to fundraise or interact more with their customers. And so this might be as simple as, helping a game developer launch an NFT line that can be used in the game, or helping a content creator use NFTs to fund content creation as well as provide NFT gating for content resources. Or it could be a business that wants to improve their marketing or their branding using an NFT-based reward strategy. And so we have a whole bunch of different tools that we combine in different ways to help really anyone use NFTs more effectively in their business. So personally, I started working with Stephen Andrews back in May of last year. So this was mainnet launch. And this was really when I got really deep into crypto, was the mainnet launch. I bought some ICP and I staked it in a Neuron, and I immediately had governance rights. And so I was voting on proposals. The first time I clicked adopt on a proposal, it was like, what if I pick the wrong thing? What if I reject a good proposal? Like, everyone's going to know it's on chain forever. But it was really an enabling opportunity for me to participate in on-chain governance. And so from that time forward, essentially, I was 100% in on the IC. Fell deep down the rabbit hole. I built ICP Guide, just a really good resource for non-technical folks on everything related to the IC. Built NFT Village, which was kind of a rarity site. And then started doing some work with Stephen Andrews. Stephen Andrews built an on-chain game called Rise of the Magni. Rise of the Magni won the first Discover Hackathon. And then from there, he launched the Chronix NFTs and just, started building a whole bunch of interesting infrastructure and needed help. So pulled in me and Steve Erickson, also known as Easy Steve. And we've both been helping him since the early days. Eventually, we needed, another person to help with operations and finance, so brought in Max. And that's really how it started. We did a seed round in October of last year, raised some money to give us some runway, and then reincorporated, and we've been running since then. We're now up to a team of maybe 10, mostly developers, but a few artists and designers in there as well. And our suite of products at this point is Stoic Wallet. Stoic Wallet's our wallet solution to handle and manage your NFTs and your tokens. We have the Entrepot Marketplace, entrepot.app, and you can, view and manage collections and buy and sell NFTs. And then we also have a launch pad where we help creators launch their NFTs. On top of that, we've been building a self-minting solution. It's essentially a GUI that lets you, point and click, select all your options, and then click go, and it's going to mint everything behind the scenes and hook you up with a launch page and add you to the marketplace. And that whole process, that kind of self-minting flow is what we've been working on recently. Yeah, really interested in finding developers that can fit into our ecosystem. So if anyone has any interest, you can hit me up on Twitter at Bob Bodley. Also, I have some really good internet computer resources generally at ICP Guide, icp.guide, where you could check out my Twitter content, and really excited to see what you all build and excited to see, the next year of the internet computer.
It's no secret that the entrepreneurial opportunity in Web3 is massive. With the creation of new tokenization and governance models, supplemented by billions in venture capital dollars waiting to be invested. Next, we'll hear from top VCs funding the future of Web3 and more founder journeys from entrepreneurs leveraging the internet computer.
Hi, thanks for joining me, Adriana Hammaker. I'm the founder of HitGeeks Media and a senior contributor to crypto news site Decrypt. And I'd like to welcome you and also to welcome Ryan Selkis, who's the founder and CEO of Messari, analytics and data company extraordinaire. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Now, few people are clued up as much as you about what is happening in the crypto world. I mean, you've been early in all things crypto, from Bitcoin to Ethereum, and now this huge explosion in Web3 and looking at where all this is going. What advice have you got for the entrepreneurs and developers participating in this global hackathon, Supernova?
Well, first off, just try to have fun with it and learn as much from as many people as possible during the initial foray. I think there's no substitute for building within the space. You can be a bystander in the industry, you can be a speculator for a long time, but until you're actually immersed in the product, even as a user, right? Even as a non-developer, I think it's tough to really get excited and see the future that's emerging and kind of where you might be able to fit into it. So excited to see some of the outputs from this event.
So these guys are getting their hands dirty. They're kind of gearing up for loads of coffee, no sleep, reinventing the internet on the blockchain. As many people say, that is the dream of Web3. Mm-hmm. So, there's all these hackathon tracks. There are all these applications. We've got DeFi, we've got NFTs, gaming, metaverse, social media, developer tooling. Should we start with maybe DeFi? What should, based on what you've seen, what should people be building?
Well, that's a wide open question. Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of exciting innovation around decentralized exchange, around lending and other traditional financial services protocols. What we haven't really seen too much of is in how to bridge between different protocols, and obviously with this community, it's going to be particularly important. I think that's where the greatest pain point currently lives. How do you actually bridge from layer 1 to layer 2 and from across other layer 1s or across other modular blockchains, so that you don't fragment liquidity, but you're also not getting crippled by high fees, right? So this is certainly true with Ethereum. I think it's becoming true with most blockchains right now. How do you solve this dilemma of moving to the lowest cost blockchain where the fees are going to be reasonable, having secure settlement between different blockchains, and ultimately making sure that you can cross collateralize assets and it works fluidly from an end user experience. I think part of that's a technical issue when it comes to bridging protocols. Part of it is a front end issue from abstracting away the pain from a user experience.
Right. And how are we with that? Because obviously, DeFi protocols, they have a reputation for being a bit clunky and not looking at user experience. So how are we doing in that respect?
I think people are getting compensated for how early we are and how poor most of the UX is. There are some good teams, of course, that are working really hard on fixing some of these issues, but there's just a lot to recreate. And for all intents and purposes, DeFi is about 2 years old. I would argue it didn't really kind of kick in to have its 0 to 1 moment until the birth of yield farming in mid 2020. So we're just coming up on the 2-year anniversary of the compound launch, for instance, and that really kind of kickstarted a whole bunch of activity on the DeFi side. So I think as the markets have spiked and then kind of came back down to earth, and then all these other venture funds have raised a tremendous amount of capital to deploy into the infrastructure and installation phase. That's where we're going to start to see some really clever application designs that kind of build on all these other building blocks that have been laid the last 2 years. And some of these user issues will start to get solved piece by piece. But I think that comes down to the builders that are participating in this event versus maybe self-explanatory when we're just talking about the broad strokes.
So people are going to be building all these in these different areas, and you yourself have stressed how important for Web3 NFTs are likely to be, particularly in your annual kind of research opus. I mean, what did it come into this year? Something like 120 pages.
165.
Oh my God. I mean, I can't say I've read all of it, but what I did read was absolutely, great insights there. But you say that NFTs are going to be playing a very big part in the whole Web3 ecosystem. So can you just talk a little bit about that and what aspects of NFTs are going to be important?
Well, discrete assets are collectively more valuable than fungible assets if you just look at the economy globally, but especially between real estate, insurance products. There's massive industries that haven't really been touched yet from the crypto crowd, and we're starting to see digital real estate and digital goods as some of the first apps that look like toys, particularly in gaming and kind of metaverse applications. But and then of course like the profile picture movement in NFTs. I really think about NFTs. I mean, NFTs are just a wrapper for any unique piece of data. And as we kind of move into the next couple of years, I think one of the most exciting applications is going to be around digital credentials and digital identity. You can think about any packet of data that's wrapped in an NFT as a component of digital identity. So you'll have your ENS name, you'll have your profile picture, you'll have your maybe a data record for a given app that you're using. You'll be able to permission out access to certain things like POAPs, proof of attendance or kind of proof of some credential, and that can be done on an opt-in basis. So we're just starting to scratch the surface in terms of how you can think about NFTs for not only virtual goods, but transferable reputation and signaling purposes. So there's a number of teams that are kind of working on that right now. This is an especially big problem in DAO governance or working with anonymous or pseudonymous contributors. And those are some of the areas that I think we're going to be able to really unlock a tremendous amount of human capital as more contributors come into the fold, and some of them might want to selectively disclose kind of where their experience is and kind of what type of capabilities they have when they're contributing to an open project.
Identity sounds like an amazingly valuable area. I mean, particularly for all those people who say, well, what are the applications? What are the really valuable applications apart from financial based stuff that this is good for? I mean, I'm keen to know because people criticize these kind of Web 2 platforms coming in to Web3, but could they maybe help in terms of moving something like identity services to things like, I don't know, all these checks needed for Ukrainian refugees, for instance, the problems with identifying people who are crossing, without passports. Can you see any of that happening anytime soon, a crossover between, what we really need these things for?
I think it's more likely that we'll see crossover between Web 2 firms and Web 3 protocols than near-term movement on web or kind of traditional finance firms and DeFi. And that's pretty simple. Financial regulation is much more difficult to get around and make progress in versus something like digital identity where it's all opt-in and there's not necessarily financial transactions kind of embedded in some of those apps. So I do think we will see Meta and some of the other big tech companies start to dabble with different Web3 protocols. Twitter, now the buzz with Twitter is Elon going to take over and will Blue Sky and kind of the open sourcing of some of their algorithms really come better, more to the fore. We'll see, right? There's still a lot that has to happen before that comes to fruition. But I do think those are the social media companies, and those networks are probably two of the ones that are more likely to see kind of real in-depth innovation on the Web3 side in the next couple of years.
So, I mean, some of that, what you've been talking about is called, from what I understand, it's SoFi, right? So like DeFi, Soho, NoHo. So we've got SoFi. I know there are a couple of Dfinity apps that are already building big in that area. But I mean, it's still very, very early days, isn't it, for SoFi? What should developers be doing to kind of move things along? Is it marketing based as well?
I mean, I think it's building a product that is uniquely interesting on its own 2 feet, and then uses token incentives to catalyze the growth of the network. It doesn't really matter if you have a token model. If people are going to use a given protocol just so that they can farm the rewards and make some money, the whole user experience for a social application like that, it's pretty tainted. So I think the best bet is build something that's interesting and valuable, and then if you can use a token for curation or kind of incentives or making the revenue that the protocol generates more community owned and kind of reallocated, those are I think that's interesting. If you're just starting with a token first and trying to figure out like how to create a good user experience after that, I think we've seen time and time again that's not a great way to start a social app. And arguably, it is for something like a DeFi protocol because it's financial by it's intrinsically financial versus something that's like a social group or something that aims to compete seriously with Twitter or Facebook, where the tokens should be used for curation and kind of the resilience of kind of hosting the service versus directly rewarding and monetizing day one users.
Many of the entrepreneurs and developers that are participating in Supernova, I mean, many of them are looking to build the next Web3 thing, the big thing. So I don't know, what do you hope to see as a founder and also as an investor who's been tracking these trends for so many years? What would really excite you?
In my annual report, I kind of spoke about a couple of core themes. We already touched on a couple of them. So I think NFTs and DAOs are interesting, but they're severely lacking in infrastructure. And then kind of the interoperability component of crypto is severely lacking as well, both from a UX standpoint and just from a security standpoint, right? These bridges between different blockchains. The other area that I think we're going to continue to see a lot of development is around ZK snarks and other privacy preserving technologies. So for teams that are working on solving any of those issues, I think those are massive opportunities. Privacy in particular, getting the balance right between selective disclosure and general auditability of the base blockchains is kind of the holy grail and something that we have to be mindful of and solve for.
Okay, so I mean the areas that you and possibly sort of, I don't know, VCs as well are looking at: interoperability, ZK snarks, and privacy. I mean, we can sort of safely say that this is the lines that people should be thinking along when they're developing this year, at least. Things move so quickly.
Well, I mean, yes, to a certain extent, but not necessarily. I mean, build things that are early or non-consensus and right, and they'll ultimately, you can be early and kind of create a category if you build a product that no one else has thought of. So those aren't exclusively the things that I'm excited about, but just a couple that came to mind as major trends, and quite frankly, they're probably some of the bubblier trends that are getting funded right now versus where they were at the end of last year.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly no lack of money being invested in Web3, right? So, the developers need to know exactly what what people are wanting, what people are looking for. So it's all kicking off. So a last word from you, perhaps, as to kind of, the future and what should people have in mind when they've got their heads down, and what's the most important thing that they should be thinking about Web3?
Well, I would think about it as a marathon. I think we're past the bull market phase at this point. So I don't necessarily think that we'll see a massive winter or prolonged bear market. We could certainly if the macro economy goes into a recession, but really it's just about kind of building for the next 5 years, keeping that in mind. If you're building tooling in the infrastructure side, and then just being militant about trying to identify early product market fit and just address some of the pain points that builders in the NFT, the DAO, the DeFi landscape are experiencing day in, day out. And what tends to happen in crypto is every single time that there's a glaring problem or something that people think of as a fatal flaw within the industry, someone steps up, solves it, and builds a $1 billion company or protocol around that solution. So I think excited to see, like I said, what comes out of this event. And the most interesting things are going to be probably areas that we didn't even touch on that I haven't really been thinking about.
Well, bear markets are good for building, right? That's kind of what happened in 2018, from my opinion anyway. I don't know about yours, but when possibly people are less focused on the price and more focused on development, that's when the magic happens.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, well, we wish everyone the best who's going to be building all these amazing things. Thanks very much, Ryan, for talking to me today, and good luck with Supernova, everyone.
Thank you. Yes, good luck.
In the ICP ecosystem, we're seeing a lot of developers from big tech companies like Google, Uber, Stripe, etc., working nights and weekends prototyping Web3 concepts on the internet computer. So eventually, like many founders building on the IC, they'll need to make that pivot from Web 2 to Web 3. So we're going to hear from Tom Saris and Maria Shen, two early investors who have made that pivot and are now making big bets on Web 3. So Tom Saris is an experienced tech entrepreneur who raised the first ever internet Series A. He is a crowdfunding pioneer, early crypto investor dating back to 2014, and now for the first time, a fund manager via Warburg Saris. He is solely focused on supporting other founders with more than 60 projects funded to date. Maria Shen is a partner at Electric Capital, which is an early stage venture firm focused on cryptocurrencies, blockchain, fintech, and marketplaces. Prior to Electric Capital, Maria was the CTO and co-founder of a startup that helped SMBs create their supply chains with manufacturers around the world. Prior to that, Maria was working on search technology at Microsoft. Welcome, Tom and Maria. We heard Olaf from Polychain talk about how the internet computer is, a fundamentally more advanced blockchain than Ethereum or other EVM-based chains. And so how does, the internet computer and the ICP ecosystem potentially fit into your investment philosophy?
Yeah, I think that's basically where we're going. We're building these large-scale internet-based deterministic state machines. Right? That's what these things are. They're all internet computers, right? When you read and you learn about Ethereum in the early days and this idea, I'm going to build a world computer, like, holy fuck, that's a massive idea. I really want to be involved with that. And I think, when we sort of sat back and we look at all the different opportunities, because there's definitely a lot of different opportunities from a layer one perspective. What we really liked about Dfinity was that they really took that idea much more seriously than I think the early implementation of Ethereum, which was really mostly based on standards. So ERC20 being a 9-function standard on how we create a token, send a token, check balances, whatever, right? The community agreed, these are the functions we're going to basically use to call into other applications to do these things. Dfinity said, no, we're going to actually create an entire canister concept where the canister itself, which is open source code, is the fundamental standard. And so it creates something that is ultimately infinitely more scalable in a lot of ways. And they basically built the IC with this concept of a computer in mind from the ground up, right? And some of those things, like, for example, being able to host the entire application on the IC, right? You see a lot of these man-in-the-middle attacks that are going after the client interface, right? Happens every day. Hundreds of millions of crypto being lost, right? You can now secure the entire application, right, on the IC. And that's a really powerful idea, especially when you start scaling DeFi into hundreds of billions in value, right? You're going to need to find ways to secure that client interface, as well as you've secured effectively the back end of that application itself. And then they can do it because of the way they've constructed their network, right? Has essentially allowed them to host those applications at a much lower cost than, per se, any of the other networks out there, where the cost of hosting the whole application is just prohibitive, right? And so you have to use other kinds of tooling like IPFS or whatever to host different elements of these different things. Whereas the IC, it really kind of like does the entire application. So they've implemented a slightly different version, right, of these kind of computers. I like the way that they've implemented. They've come up with a lot of really novel cryptography, like chain key, where you can call state and another application sitting on another network, which is really a fundamental innovation, right? I mean, it's truly innovative. And I think that's one of the things that we always really liked about, Dfinity, is that, they really took R&D very seriously as a part of building essentially the next version of the internet, right? Where, you have these kind of fully decentralized internet computers that you can run autonomous software applications on top of. And the way they went about it is just so powerful. It very easily sits into our investment thesis, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, it truly is unique, having everything run 100% on chain. That's a great.
And you're going to have to eventually.
Yeah. So next, I want to talk about some of the category focuses for Supernova. So one of the most relevant use cases for blockchain technology right now is DeFi. DeFi went from the ICO days to what was being called the DeFi summer, to DeFi 2.0. And now developers are leveraging the internet computer to create gasless and bridgeless DeFi. So I want to position this next question to Maria. So, Maria, you had said that DeFi is kind of baked into this thesis for Electric Capital and for this $1 billion fund. So what are you seeing, Maria, in this arc of DeFi, and what learnings can help founders here?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I do think crypto has this really amazing ability to democratize finance, and people talk a lot about it. And I don't think we've actually kind of fulfilled that dream yet. But I do think the capability is there. All of a sudden, you have value that's borderless and near instantaneous to transfer. And the kind of the amazing thing with programmable money, which is different from just regular money, is you can write rules on top of it. Just simple if this, then that types of rules are what makes DeFi remarkable. In that, all of a sudden, anyone in the world can create a market just by writing very simple sets of rules. So I think, the trend, the question in DeFi or at least one question I've always had is around, defensibility. What makes something defensible? If everything is out in the open, which is great, because I think it also, there's a lot of there's so many kind of even security benefits to open source software. But if everything is out in the open, doesn't that make everything extremely forkable? And that's been a question that I think a lot of people have had since DeFi's beginnings. And it's been interesting seeing kind of how the space has answered that question. Early DeFi, I think a lot of a lot of emphasis was on the community itself, or the ability for the founding team to build features faster than competitors can fork. And I think now we're seeing this focus on protocol controlled value, where all of a sudden it's not, you can fork a protocol, but you can't fork that protocol's treasury. And that's been, I think that's been a really interesting new development in how, in defensibility for these DeFi protocols, where you see all of a sudden these structural reasons that these protocols are, going to be enduring and will be around for a long time, is the network effects around building a large treasury and being able to utilize that.
For sure. Yeah, there's so much opportunity there. And it seems like one of the hottest spaces in blockchain right now. So really excited to see the news from your fund about what's coming and what kinds of companies and projects that you're going to invest in. So I want to talk about some trends in metaverse and GameFi. These are two other tracks of the hackathon. This is a new hot space with a big emphasis on new. So Tom, how should founders position a metaverse or a gaming startup when they come to pitch you? Like, what would make you say, yes, I'm going to write a check for this company?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. So I think first I should probably point out the obvious to everyone. In my opinion, it's not a metaverse unless it's built on a Web3 stack, right? So if you look at even some of the things that are going on in Web2, whether it's Facebook or whatever, launching Meta and so on, it's like they're trying to build a metaverse that's centrally controlled, which is, in my opinion, the exact opposite of a true metaverse, right? And so I think these metaverse environments are decentralized from a control perspective and so on. And so when we look at gaming, we kind of look at the game stack itself. Like if you're going to go build a game, there's a lot of stuff you need, right? You need all sorts of different kinds of component architecture, right? You can look at, say, companies like Unity, right? Where they provide essentially a tool set for game developers to build games. And that every single one of those things is going to have to exist on Web3, right? Except that instead of being controlled by Unity, it'll be decentralized in terms of ownership and governance around the actual components that sit within the Unity environment, right? And so we're looking at projects that are building middleware solutions that enable game development, because we want to see a proliferation of gaming applications built on top of them, on top of a given ecosystem, right? So the more middleware exists, right? Middleware is essentially dev tech and tools that make application development faster, cheaper, and easier, right? That's the whole point. And so when we sit back, we say, okay, what if we want millions and billions of gaming apps to exist? What do we need to invest in? Because that's how we think. Let's invest in, DevOps, game live ops solutions for, on-chain game mechanics and on-chain game metrics, right? Because being able to have things like, persistent and stateful, representation of gaming data for, say, a simple leaderboard concept inside of a game to rank players who are battling it out in some kind of metaverse or virtual environment is going to be fundamentally important in order to have valid data for reporting who a winner is of a given tournament or something like that, right? Or in marketplaces for, trading NFTs related to game development, or being able to port one game asset from one game to another game to another game, or compute-gacha tactics to do combinatorial effects to create entirely new rare assets that are minted based on some kind of game mechanic. So we think about a lot of that stuff when we're investing in gaming, and how can we create or invest in things that will enable your average developer or designer to very quickly and easily build a new game itself. So, and in addition to the game, right, investing in those as well too.
I want to hear about kind of your perspective on the opportunity around decentralized social. This is another category in the hackathon.
Yeah, I think whenever social relies entirely on social graphs, and whenever there's a new social graph being drawn, there's the opportunity for a huge platform to emerge. You saw this with Facebook, right? Has a different social graph than perhaps LinkedIn, which has a different social graph from TikTok. And so whenever a new platform has been able to draw a new graph, it can expand extremely rapidly. And so similarly, I think there's a social graph now being drawn in crypto that no one is capturing. Perhaps Twitter is capturing it the best, but it's still actually just a kind of Web 2 approach to what it can actually look like. But this new social graph that's being drawn is based on ownership. What NFTs do you own? What tokens do you own? And then what have you done with that ownership? Have you used your tokens to provide liquidity in DeFi protocols? If so, how much liquidity? And also what types of protocols? How early were you? And if you hold NFTs, then did you mint the original CryptoPunk, or did you buy it later on? Or if you have if you're a participant in a DAO, are you a regular voter, or are you absent most of the time? And how active are you in governance, and how have you voted? I think all of these signals are effectively being pushed live to the blockchain. And so the blockchain is actually like an auto updating social media feed that no one has been able to capture yet. And I think the promise there is huge. And so you see early examples like that, of that, where Context app, as an example, which is an application on Ethereum, is effectively a social feed of what new asset has entered someone's wallet. And that's a social feed that, can you imagine that being the news feed for Facebook or for Instagram? It's ludicrous to even think about. And I think that's where the opportunity is something so fundamentally new and Web3 native, and really breaks from the mold of how we've been thinking about social up until now. I'm skeptical of approaches to social that just takes what we know and adds like sprinkles in decentralization or sprinkles in tokens. I tend to think that that's not going to work.
What you get with Web3 is, instead of having, a board of directors and a CEO and, this kind of bureaucratic governance layer that sits over and controls everything that happens in these networks, like we've seen and certainly are still experiencing today, some of that, you get a more decentralized governance model around the software itself, because the software is autonomous by nature, right? And those who contribute the value, you redistribute the value of these things to the users who ultimately create the value in the first place, right? So the value creation on Facebook is really because the business model of the internet is advertising, right? And so they're incentivized to take all of your data just to sell more ads. That's the incentive model. But with crypto, we can change the incentive model, right? You can do now like to earn, right? And you can earn to participate in these things that ultimately make the network quite a bit more valuable over time. And then just being able to have this kind of like open development model around these things so that, we can all participate in what is effectively autonomous software that will have minimal operating overhead, right? Because you don't have a massive company behind it that has to pay employees and HR departments and all these different things. You're actually you're distributing the workforce through to the users who are ultimately interacting and using these applications itself. So it changes the way a lot of these companies work. And then because of things like data composability, if I want to use a different application, I just pop into that other application and my friends are already there. And that's the value that an end user gets, right?
Yeah. And I love what you're saying about changing the incentives for social companies. Like right now, Twitter and Facebook and, Google too, or I guess Google's different, but Twitter and Facebook have no incentive to, favor their communities. So, you mentioned, Tom, that, you invest in people, and that's kind of a primary factor that you look at is who is this person. But, you're going to be in these different environments where you may never meet these founders, but you still have to decide if you're going to write $1 million check or something like that. So beyond this core prototype or technical durability of a company, what are you looking for in your entrepreneurs and your teams?
Yeah. I think there are the things that are pretty typical, like what is the size of the market that you're trying to tackle? Do you have the right people to execute on this idea? Are you technical and able to build it? But I think to your question in terms of what are the characteristics of the founders, and what do I look for there? I think a lot of it boils down to thoughtfulness and creativity. I think creativity is incredibly important in the Web3 space because no one actually knows how any of this is supposed to work. And so you really have to think outside the box. I think a very typical example of this is, how just reimagining how exchanges could work in a decentralized way. For a very long time, people built exchanges with the old order book model because the thought there is, well, you would need a seller and you need a buyer and you need to match the seller to the buyer. When in reality, the thing that ended up working was actually, Uniswap, like a pooled model. And you would actually swap tokens back and forth just based on a very simple equation. And it is, I think you need a shift in mindset to be able to imagine something like that. The mechanics are not complicated, but the ability to think outside the box is the hard part, I would say. And so I think this is also what Tom was kind of referring to as well, in that kind of crypto nativeness. I think, the ability to not apply what works in Web 2 and just copy paste it into Web 3 is incredibly important. And the second thing is thoughtfulness. We're often the first check in, and so we're investing in founders very, very early. And whatever is being presented in the slides will probably certainly change.
Always changes.
Exactly. I would be more shocked if it didn't change. And I think it comes from, founders make a set of assumptions around what they think will work, and then given those assumptions, what is the natural what's the natural kind of like implications of that, and they build their product around that. But if it turns out that one of your core assumptions was wrong, which it often can be, or the crypto market shifts, under your foot, then you need to be able to adapt very, very quickly. And so I think when I talk to founders, I usually try to tease out what are the underlying assumptions that you're making for this to work. And how deeply have you thought about that? And tease out whether, if it turns out this assumption is not correct or that assumption is not correct, would you be able to pivot quickly? I think that ability is incredibly important for early stage companies where nothing is really set in stone.
Next, I want to move over to this topic of infrastructure. So, Tom, I know that Warburg Series invests in a lot of infrastructure and tooling, hence you have this early investment into Dfinity. So another category that we have for the Supernova Hackathon is infrastructure. And so with this sector, developers aren't building for users, they are building for other developers. So what are you specifically looking for when it comes to investing in Web3 infrastructure?
Pretty much any component that you can think of that exists in Web 2 will need to be rebuilt in a Web 3 way, right? An indexing solution, as an example, right? Or, storage, right? Like all these different things are ultimately going to have to be rebuilt. And some of the thing I always tell people is like, man, you know what? Just go to NPM, go to their website, and just like sort by popularity on all these like open source middleware components that basically every developer in the world currently uses, and just rebuild all of them.
So as we've learned today, the investment landscape looks quite different for Web3 and VC than it did 5 years ago even. And hackathons and grant programs are an amazing risk-free way to build in Web3 right now. So this panel has been great. Thank you so much, Tom and Maria. I know your insights are going to inspire entrepreneurs and developers to leverage Web3 and the internet computer and really get them on track to receive their first big check. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, my name is Hamish, and I'm one of the 3 developers building a new chat app running on the internet computer called OpenChat. The 3 of us are all based in the UK, and we worked together for many years before we heard about the internet computer and came up with the idea to build OpenChat. One of the other founders, Matt, is actually an old friend of Dom's. They worked together on various startups over roughly a 10-year period. That connection to Dom is how we first got introduced to the internet computer. Dom gave us the sales pitch to try to entice us to leave our old jobs and build on the internet computer, and it worked. We spent some time digging into the internet computer and learning about its capabilities. For example, it is extremely scalable, but changes to state take 1 or 2 seconds to finalize. We felt this was a perfect opportunity to build a fully decentralized chat app, which would have all of the usual features that you'd expect, such as direct messages, private groups, public groups, and so on, but then also have additional features which are only made possible due to it running on the blockchain, such as decentralized governance and the ability to easily and securely transfer crypto within chat messages. OpenChat is already live and out there for people to use. If you haven't already, you should check it out. You can access it at oc.app. Feel free to drop me a message. I'm happy to answer anything about OpenChat or the internet computer or whatever. My username is simply Hamish. So in OpenChat, you can already send direct messages or create groups with thousands of users. You can react to messages. You can create polls. You can send ICP within chat messages too. But we still have a long list of features we want to add. For example, we will shortly have end-to-end encryption within direct chats and private groups. Once the internet computer's Bitcoin integration is complete, we will have the ability to send Bitcoin within chat messages. We also want to support integrations with external services. For example, we already have groups where users can view governance proposals, and we want to extend those groups so that users can actually vote on those proposals by simply reacting with a thumbs up or thumbs down to the message. Or users could top up a canister with cycles by sending a message containing ICP to a bot, which then handles the top up. Or users could, for example, exchange ICP for Bitcoin or any other crypto by simply sending ICP in a chat message to a token swap bot. These are just a few examples which we will most likely build ourselves. But in the future, we envision the community extending the functionality of OpenChat by building loads more of these integrations. Another big feature coming shortly is the SNS integration. Currently, us 3 devs have full control over the code running in the OpenChat canisters, but this doesn't really fit with our goal of decentralization. The internet computer is governed by the NNS, the Network Nervous System, and shortly services running on the internet computer will have the option to be governed by their own SNS, which stands for the Service Nervous System. So people holding ICP can vote on changes to the internet computer via the NNS, and similarly, once OpenChat hands control over to its own SNS, people holding OpenChat tokens will be able to vote on changes to OpenChat via the OpenChat SNS. Once this happens, OpenChat will then be fully decentralized. Us three founders will only keep roughly 10% of the tokens, so the majority of the control will be in the hands of the community. This is a complete shift from how existing chat apps work, and will be the first time a chat app will be directly controlled by its users. Also, holders of the OpenChat token will benefit financially if OpenChat takes off, since that would cause the OpenChat token to grow in value. This means that our users are incentivized to bring other people over to OpenChat, which will hopefully cause the user base to grow massively. Our code will soon be open source too, and our plan is to reward people who contribute by giving them additional OpenChat tokens. We have already had many people from the community volunteer to translate OpenChat, and thanks to them we currently support 11 different languages. Once the OpenChat tokens are available, we'll send some to those users who have already helped out. So it will be exciting to see how the pool of contributors grows due to these tokenization aspects. And in closing, no one really knows how OpenChat will look in 2 to 3 years, since it will be decided by the community. But either way, it's exciting to be part of this journey. So get involved, build things, join in with the fun, and good luck with the hackathon.
Hi, I'm Jesse. I'm the founder of Portal. Portal is a video and audio streaming pipeline that's built on the internet computer. We take video and audio and we transcode it and upload it to the internet computer and provide a way for content creators and media projects to host and deliver their full media experience directly from the blockchain. This is pretty exciting and it opens up a lot of cool opportunities. Some of these opportunities are, for example, DRM. So we have a way to ensure that content creators are fairly compensated for their work. Also, one of the perks is that all of these assets now can be turned into NFTs. And that provides value to the creator and the project, as well as providing cool ways to interact with your community. We have some other cool stuff, such as the ability to send and receive transactions directly from the smart contract. So now as a creator, you have basically your own financial system built into your channel. And we also have kind of some admin stuff like an event log that updates you anytime anyone buys or sells one of your NFTs, or anytime anything is uploaded to your smart contract, any type of thing like that. There's a record of it. So Portal started about a year ago. It went through several different iterations along the way before it became what it is today. About a year ago, I found out about the internet computer during the Genesis launch and immediately became very excited about the opportunity, about the potential. I was working with some enterprise type microservice stuff at the time and at my full-time job, and had been working a lot with serverless stuff like AWS Lambdas, and had been really enjoying the whole idea of like the small composable paradigm that was emerging. So whenever I found out about the internet computer and how it's based on this this model of actors, and the actors are basically like microservices that can communicate with each other on the blockchain, I immediately became hooked and started getting more and more into it. I worked through a couple different projects and met a lot of really great people in the community at the same time. I worked on React for a little bit. I worked on Learn for a little bit. And then I got a grant to do the initial version of Portal, which was live streaming. During that time, we figured out how to do live streaming on the IC, which was really exciting, and opened up a lot of possibilities. So after that, we kind of started solidifying more like our roadmap and what we were going to be as a project and who our target audience was going to be. And that kind of evolved over time, and it went from sort of this live streaming app to what it is now, which is the full pipeline, including like a decentralized transcoding network, which accepts video and audio and transcodes it into the right format to be uploaded onto the internet computer. And then the smart contracts that hold the transcoded pieces and allow for the media to be used as NFTs. And then the final piece, of course, is all of the front-end UI stuff, which allows users to interact with these smart contracts and to do cool things, such as like Spotify or Netflix, except with NFTs. So it's kind of the full pipeline from uploading to the end user facing experience. So I chose the IC for a few different reasons. And probably the primary reason that I chose to build on the IC is because of the Dfinity team. The first thing that I thought whenever I was watching the Genesis launch event was how impressive it was and how well polished everything was. Just I think the standard of quality that the project had really impressed me. So I immediately started working on it. Some of the other stuff that really attracted me to building on the internet computer is the out-of-the-box support and tools that you get from building on a blockchain. For example, authorization, authentication, sort of like your own banking system, like I mentioned before. So now you have access to transferring funds to your smart contracts, out of your smart contracts. You can create marketplaces. All of these things that traditionally require a third-party like cloud provider, something that you would normally have to sign up for a subscription to Amazon, for instance, or Stripe, now comes out of the box for free. And that was really awesome for me to figure out. So that is another reason why I was attracted to building on the IC. The last reason is the developer community and how supportive everybody in the community is. Anytime I've ever had a question or needed a solution for something, I've always been able to reach out to any of the other community members or project leaders, and they always respond right away, and they're super helpful and super open. So the developer community on the IC has been really great, and is definitely one of the things to consider whenever deciding if the internet computer is right for your project or not. And that's it. So yeah, like I said, we're charging ahead full speed, and we are hiring. So if you know anybody, or if you yourself are super passionate about audio or video streaming or NFTs, NFT marketplaces, any of that, decentralized node networks, I would love to talk to you and see how we can work together. Good luck and happy coding.
Hello there from Los Angeles. This is Tommy from the IC Gallery. I am a former game developer at Disney and Scopely. I formerly worked on video games for Marvel as well as Avatar, James Cameron Avatar with the blue people. And now I'm working full-time on the internet computer. And I wanted to share a bit, of how this came to be. About 8 months ago, when I was still working at Scopely, I saw a tweet by the ICP Maximalist on Twitter, and I DM'd him because I was super interested in building on the internet computer. The technology behind it, had always piqued my interest. And so I saw this opportunity to build, and so I DM'd him thinking maybe there's a chance that we might align on some ideas. Now 8 months later, we're full-time business partners and building full-time on the IC. And actually, currently I am sitting in his home. So it's been a pretty wild journey, from going from Twitter strangers to now being full-time business partners, and honestly, really close friends. So it's been quite a ride, and the IC Gallery has a lot in store for its future. We can't wait to share more with you guys, in the coming months of what it will become. There's never been a time that I've been more sure that the success of the internet computer and the success of the IC Gallery is imminent. So I'm really excited for the Supernova Hackathon, and let me share a little bit more with you about the IC Gallery. So the IC Gallery initially started as a concept for people to display NFTs in a 3D space, and we really wanted to build it on the internet computer. And the reason why we chose the internet computer initially was because I thought it was amazing that we could have the IC Gallery game being run completely on decentralized nodes, being hosted around the world. To think of it as reinventing the internet, having something like AWS or Google Cloud that's being hosted on servers around the world, but now it's being hosted, in a blockchain. This idea was revolutionary to us, and of course, we didn't see any other blockchains do anything similar, and it really caused us to gravitate and want to build on the internet computer. And right now, the current iteration of the IC Gallery that you see is definitely more geared toward displaying and showcasing NFTs. But as we've kind of built and iterated on that, we realized that we want to take the IC Gallery in more of a game world direction. Given my background in game development at Disney and Scopely, I have a lot of wealth of knowledge to bring into how to build a game that's fun, that progresses well, and that also rewards the players that play. And so one of our taglines is that we want to build a game that gives life-changing opportunities to the players. And that's something that is really a core vision of the IC Gallery and what it's going to become. And so we want to build a meritocratic game that basically rewards the highly engaged players in the game with the best rewards, and that way the people who actually engage are the ones who get rewarded in our game. And so in the future, you'll see that the IC Gallery will take on many different experiments. We're a very playful team. We love to try different things and try new things. And we love our interaction with our community. So we'll be doing lots of different experiments with our community, getting their feedback, seeing what they like, seeing what they don't like. And I think that's really core to Web3 development, is being able to have that really tight connection with your community, whether it's on Discord or Twitter. I know ICP Maximalist has been doing one-on-one calls with our biggest supporters. And that's huge because we think that, having a tight-knit small community is way more important than having, millions of people that kind of like you. So we really, really, really want to support our community and build something that they love, So we're going to use that as kind of our guiding compass when we're building out our product. And with that, I really want to encourage you all who are participating in the hackathon to build a game. And if you need any help, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at TommyInvest. And feel free to also look at our guide that we made to integrate Plug Wallet as well as fetch your NFTs in your wallet. I believe you can find it on the IC Gallery Twitter page as well. You can also join the IC Gallery Discord and feel free to post any questions there. We're really here to help you guys. And we really believe that for the IC to succeed, the developers and ecosystem need to help each other because we only succeed if all of us succeed. And so in the spirit of Web3, we're all going to make it. So if you're also interested, we are looking for a Unity developer to hire for our team. So if the internet computer is something that, really piques your interest and you love building games, please reach out to us. It doesn't even matter your skill level or your experience. Please reach out and we'll figure something out. So please enjoy the hackathon and hopefully we'll see you guys around.
Developers from all over the world are leveraging the internet computer blockchain to build new use cases as well as dApps in many different categories like DeFi, NFTs, gaming, decentralized social, metaverse, and more. As we approach the final segment of the Supernova Kickoff, we want to acknowledge partners from all around the world who have made this hackathon possible.
What's up, folks? My name's Justin, coming in hot from Los Angeles, but we're here to bring you a global hackathon. This hackathon is open for registration right now, but it starts on May 10th and it will be virtual until June 20th. Teams are welcome to submit projects anytime in advance of June 20th by hitting the link supernova.devpost.com. The total pool of prizes and additional funding opportunities for the hackathon is up to $6 million, including specific track awards, developer grants, and additional funding. Teams can be as large as 6 members and can submit as many projects as they like during the 6-week hackathon. However, each project can only apply for one major hackathon track. There will be 5 winners for each category, as well as a winner-takes-all grand champion. And finally, a community choice award where you, the community, can choose the winner. So please rally with us for Supernova, the largest blockchain hackathon of all time, and let's empower hackers to create social change together. We have 6 tracks for the hackathon. The first category for the Supernova Hackathon is SocialFi. We're seeing a wave of interest from the media, investors, developers, and users alike. The promise of Web3 comes to life in decentralized social by rewarding the most active users, moderators, and top creators natively, creating platforms that are naturally sticky. Not to mention the ability to tokenize your platform and hand governance off to your community. The internet computer is the only blockchain where you can host your full stack using nothing but smart contracts. With this, we've seen and heard from some of the most incredible dApps created in the ecosystem, and we want you to be a part of that movement with us. The second hackathon track at Supernova is the DeFi track. The internet computer expands the world of possibilities of decentralized finance in a multi-chain world. DeFi on the internet computer allows for easy integration with other dApps and offers seamless user experience with low fees. With 0 gas fees due to the reverse gas model on the internet computer protocol, there has never been a lower barrier to entry for new Web3 users and developers. So that's why we want you hacking with us. The next track is GameFi. Decentralized gaming is one of the most pioneering spaces in Web3. Few innovations have enabled users from across the globe to earn real-life rewards for their in-game efforts. GameFi is still in the early stages of innovation, and building 100% on-chain experiences has not been possible before the internet computer. We're excited to see how you can architect game mechanics, token incentives, NFT items, cross-game marketplaces, or build out Web3 gaming infrastructure that's needed for the future of decentralized gaming. The next track is Metaverse and NFTs. The last year has seen a massive rise in the number of NFT projects, marketplaces, and new use cases. In addition, new metaverse experiences have been blowing minds across the globe. Between controversy, art, and immersive experiences, this category allows hackers to blend metaverse experiences and NFTs to create never-before-seen on-chain worlds. The next category is blue sky. With the world of possibilities afforded to us by Web3, we know that we don't know what the future holds. We want you to reach for the galaxies at the Supernova Hackathon because you're the first astronauts on the rocket ship that is reinventing the internet on the blockchain. If you feel constrained by any of the other categories, then be sure to submit for the blue sky as you dream up the next big thing. And last but not least, and my personal favorite, what HackerFund strives to do, the social impact track. The reason why we all spend time in Web3 working on open source projects and taking the time to learn and teach new technologies. We're looking for you to examine real world problems that you see globally or in your personal experience and think, how can you leverage the internet computer to solve them? Blockchain and Web3 gives us the opportunity to build a better world that benefits those providing value directly, but only if we are the stewards of that and we are going in the right direction. As you think about your hacks for Supernova, keep in mind that all winning prizes for all categories are accompanied with an automatic inclusion to the Dfinity Developer Grants Program. This is non-dilutive funding, accessible from completing milestones to support continued development of your projects. Additionally, ecosystem partners are providing incredible amounts of additional prizes and seed funding opportunities. We have up to $6 million in prizes and additional funding opportunities. Winners are selected based on the scores assigned to their projects by the judges. Judging criteria are X factor and potential, technical competence, social impact, progression, and the IC factor, projects demonstrating a unique trait of the internet computer. All submissions must be deployed to the mainnet and have a working solution for judges or the community so that they can interact with it and that it's hosted meaningfully on the internet computer. The hackathon will close for submissions on June 20th, and there will be a live demo day for finalists in front of judges, media, and investors on June 30th. Now, to hear from more of the regional hackathon partners that are supporting behind the scenes.
So hi there, I'm Anthony. I'm CEO and co-founder of Encode Club. I'm based in London, United Kingdom. Encode Club is a Web3 education community. What we do is we train developers and help them get onboarded into the crypto and Web3 space. We do it through great programs, things like hackathons, coding bootcamps, accelerators, workshops, and events with many different chains. One of our particular favorites obviously being ICP, and we're extremely excited to be involved with this Supernova Hackathon. It's actually our second hackathon with ICP, and we did a brilliant one towards the end of last year with some great projects coming out. And we're particularly excited to see the applications, dApps, and next iteration of products that are built within the ICP ecosystem within this hackathon that Encode is delighted to be partnering with and to see great things be built. Web3 is extremely important to our community because people see it as the next step in their careers to get involved. And it's very clear at this point in the crypto and Web3 will be extremely impactful to our work lives and our everyday lives. And people that go through our community want to prepare themselves for that, want to learn, educate themselves, and be in a position to take advantage of that, be it starting their own projects, just having an awareness of blockchain, Web3, crypto, and ideally getting jobs in the space. So we look forward to seeing all the great innovation that happens in this hackathon, and best of luck to everyone, and happy hacking.
Hey everyone, this is Aniket from India, and I'm the community lead at DevFolio. So talking more about DevFolio, DevFolio is currently a hackathon platform where you can sign up on the platform, get a chance to participate in various hackathons, and also for organizers who wish to, conduct hackathons and don't really have to worry about the the nitty-gritties of the hackathon. You can just focus on building a great hackathon while our platform takes care of the rest of the things. As far as Web3 is concerned, so we have been doing hackathons, Web3 hackathons since 2018, starting off with ETH India back then. And we have seen great projects like InstaDapp and even ConvoSpace being built at these hackathons. And we know the kind of potential these hackathons are providing to help you take your project to the next level. And ever since then, we have done like 9 to 10 offline and online hackathons. And for Web3, we personally feel that the gatekeeping is less. You don't really have to, again, worry much about, how should I build this? How should I approach investors or other protocols to partner or whatever help you need? It's all very, I would say it's very chill, the ecosystem. You can just slide into anyone's DMs on Twitter, and I'm sure they'll be happy to help you out. So yeah, at Supernova, there are $6 million plus in prizes, and we are pretty sure that, everyone wants a piece of it. But, honestly, more important than the prizes, it's the opportunity to, network with fellow hackers, with industry experts, and, build on groundbreaking technologies Web3 has to offer, especially in the fields of DeFi, DAOs, NFTs, metaverse. There's so many cool things coming up, and maybe you can even create your own sort of new category under Web3. Excited to see, all the cool stuff which will be coming out of this hackathon. And I'm pretty sure that, this is where, this will be a product launch pad, and, excited to see what you'll be building.
So, hey guys, this is Steve Nog. I'm a partner at DoraHacks. Very happy to have this opportunity to share more about who we are and why we participate in the Supernova Hackathon to you. Thank you, Dfinity team, for giving us this opportunity. So yeah, we're DoraHacks. We are one of the largest multi-chain developer incentive platforms in Web3. And some of our most recent achievement is that we have co-hosted East Denver, the largest in-person hackathon in the United States. So DoraHacks have helped a little bit more than 2,000 early stage projects raised $20 million in grants and donations last year in 2021. And we plan to do more and do better in the near future. So yeah, very excited to have this opportunity to co-host the Asia track of Dfinity Supernova Hackathon starting from May 10th. And we are very excited to see and onboard more teams to join the IC ecosystem. IC, actually, Dfinity is a very, very different ecosystem compared with other major Web3 ecosystems, layer ones, layer twos. We have actually our team have browsed through all of the new applications building on top of IC, and I can see there's decentralized Discord, there's decentralized Reddit. A lot of them are really, really exciting projects, turning Web2 experiences into Web3. I guess that's why I'm particularly excited to join and support this hackathon. So yeah, if you are joining, if you want to build a new application in the Web3 ecosystem, I particularly encourage you to try out building on top of IC and joining the Supernova Hackathon. There are, I guess, millions of dollars of seed funding opportunities. There's, I believe, also nearly $1 million prize pool out there, not just for the global track, but if you participate in Asia track, we also prepared approximately $150,000 prize pool for you to compete. Also, pretty much brilliant mentors and judges are there waiting to answer your questions and provide guidance and feedback on your project. So if you have any questions on this hackathon or about Dfinity, I guess it would be great to come out, check with DoraHacks team and IC team. We'll support you 100%, no holding back in this hackathon. And particularly if you're a hacker based in Asia region, there's a different prize pool waiting for you in the Asia track, and you will be 100% supported by the DoraHacks team there. Yeah, so go to dorahacks.io and you should probably find the Supernova Hackathon and entrance of the hackathon on the main page. Very happy to have this opportunity to co-host Supernova with Dfinity, and we definitely plan to see brilliant new developers, teams joining Supernova Hackathon and have a great time there. Hope you can build the next Web3 unicorn in the IC ecosystem.
Hola, bienvenidos. This is Alejandra from Hackathon, which is based in Chile, but actually I'm in Mexico. Who we are, who is Hackathoners? Well, we seek to encourage the use of disruptive technologies through the organization of hackathons, workshops, exclusive content, such as tutorials. Also, we are seeking to encourage companies to innovate, also empower them to present complex challenges and obtain innovative solutions. The impact of Web3 in Latin American region is very important because decentralization offered by these technologies, such as crypto and blockchain, create an environment where these kind of technologies can empower creators and users of decentralized platforms. Also, we would like to say that we are very excited to participate in this hackathon because we think that the Supernova Hackathon will provide opportunities to explore and allow the participants in Latin America to explore characteristics and benefits that this blockchain offers to develop projects based on Web3. Muchas gracias por escuchar. Adiós.
Hi everyone, this is Lucas from Huobi Incubator. We're super excited to co-partner with Dfinity and its many notable sponsors on the Supernova Hackathon. We believe this is an amazing opportunity for teams to build, learn, with prize money, and I think the most important part is to connect. So we believe the IC, the internet computer, is a very competitive, powerful, and easy to access blockchain platform. And they're hosting this hackathon event to help build the Web3 landscape. Whether you are a experienced Web3 developer or you're from the Web2 world and just taking a look inside of this whole new thing. We hope all the teams can be taken good care of through this journey. Since we've got this amazing welcome track, all the seminars, all the webinar, web workshops that you could attend, and all the judges, all the connections that are here to offer help to you guys. And on our side, Huobi, we are a builder as well, and we build exchange, blockchain, wallet, and many other products. So that makes a lot of sense for us to support the hackathon program. We are excited to see creative projects coming out from it, which also give us a very good chance to be in touch with the projects in your early days, and see we are not only contributing $1 million to the prize pool and the funding pool. We wanted to help the teams accelerate their development through your journey. So, because I think in today's market, a fundraise is not something hard for a good project, but what you really need is a good strategic partner. Because in order to achieve your final goal, I believe there's a lot of things a project need in its life cycle. And it is becoming more and more competitive landscape for being an investor in this Web3 field. But we're pretty confident because Huobi has been inside this space since 2013. So what we expected to bring the ecosystem is our rich experience and rich connection with the whole industry from both up to downstream. And we hope we can give advice from like a different perspective. So we'll provide resources and customized incubation plans besides just founding investment. For instance, if you are like in your early days, we could offer help with hiring talents, technical support, or even tokenomic design. And for project in the later days, I think getting your first group of users is the top priority. And we can help with that with our rich resources in marketing, community building, and of course, listing service. Yeah, so we are just here to help the entrepreneurs and startups to overcome the difficulty you're facing in your early stage. And I believe our collaboration goes beyond the program. It is a long-term thing for Huobi to support the Dfinity ecosystem. And I think everything is just at its beginning at the moment. Yeah. And I couldn't be more excited because this turned out to be the biggest hackathon in the internet computer history. We got up to $6 million in the prize pool and funding pool. But more importantly, I think this hackathon is really a worthy opportunity if you want to really build something in the IC ecosystem, or even just like an experiment. Because I believe the greatest thing about Web3 is it is still at its very early days. So there's just so much things yet to be built. And that makes it much more exciting whether you are like a Web3 builder or you're from the Web2 world. You're all going to put in different energy into the network. And that is something we're looking forward to see. Yeah, so at last, I just want to say we're absolutely excited to see all the talents getting touched by this community. And I can't wait to see what is going out to be coming out from this hackathon. Thank you, and good luck to all you guys. Bye-bye.
We are super excited to welcome all of you today. Just a reminder that submissions are open from now through June 20th. Teams are welcome to submit their projects anytime in advance of the June 20th deadline at 11:45 p.m. Pacific time. The total pool of prizes and additional funding opportunities for the hackathon is up to $6 million, including specified track awards, developer grants, and seed funding opportunities. Sponsors and judges include Polychain Capital, Electric Capital, Huobi, Foresight Ventures, Tomahawk VC, and more. We can't wait to see what you build under the categories of Web3, DeFi, NFT, gaming, metaverse, decentralized social, infrastructure, and social impact. For more information, go to supernova.devpost.com. The possibilities of what you can build on the internet computer are truly endless, and we will be here with you along the way. All of the recordings of the recent workshops are available for you, as well as several of the key developer resources can guide you in your journey. Our team will be available for any support that you would need over the next several weeks, and we will be conducting regular office hours where you can come with all of your questions. We can't wait to see what you build. Happy hacking, and welcome again to Supernova.